news. It keeps us safe. But the delays have also worn us down. So, there's give or take in that. And to say that, only 10,000 people are on the first, 800, to give out to the rest of the world, that's a pretty small number in relationship to how many hold currency. They still anticipate anywhere from a 3.8 to 4.7 million exchange in the first 4 days, 5 days. I think they give it a sixth day only because they are planning for weather or something else, just giving it a cushion. But they actually anticipate getting at least 80% of that first wave done in the first 3 days. So that's all really interesting, I guess. But again, we're looking for results. Doesn't much matter what the intel is at this point. It's pretty obvious we've got it right. We know what's exchanging at what values. The rates keep climbing. The ZIM keeps climbing really exponentially, not in tandem with the other currencies, because the other currencies, quite frankly, when rate changes on a dinar or a dong, it's not nearly the same as when it changes on the ZIM in terms of the payout. So those of us, at least those of us that follow me, are really ZIM exclusive, and for good reason. It's the biggest bang for the buck and the way to do the most good if you're truly humanitarian. So from the bank's perspective, they're all set, ready to go. Memos come out every day. We think I have the memos read to me. The memos are really lost leaders to try and suck the cabal into mistakes, and they've done terrific jobs of it. So every bank sends out different memos, and they say different things, and what to believe, what not to believe. I don't really pay much attention anymore to bank memos because they never really pan out. I find it more interesting. They keep coming, and what they say and how they differentiate what they're saying. I find it interesting that, from my understanding, the actual numbers of the redemption centers are going down, not up, because they feel they hit their threshold and they have overstaffed and overcooked the percentages in terms of what they would need. So there's a lot of exchange centers that are going to close on day one. There'll be some exchange centers that are going to close in the first 12 hours after the initial rush has been worked through. And they'll slowly bring them down, one by one until they have what they need basically to have area coverage for stragglers that come in after the first 6 days. So from a timeline perspective, which is all anybody really cares about, the end of June is metaphorically the end of Ramadan, and the Arab world has asked incessantly to have this begun, really completed by the end of Ramadan, which would be the 26th or 27th, depending on which calendar you believe they're following, which would make today is the 22nd. That would give them their 3 days still to accomplish what they needed, starting either tonight or tomorrow after the markets close in the U.S. So we still think it's going to be a Wednesday or a Saturday release, just because we think they either want the banks all open or they want the banks all closed and markets. So, whenever we get past a Wednesday, I really don't start paying attention until we hit Saturday, honestly. And vice versa, once we get past the Saturday into Sunday morning, about 2 a.m., 3 a.m. tops, I don't really look much at the release. I think it'll come on one of those two moments. Because I think they're going to walk it right through the front door. They're not so worried about the exchange centers or the exchange themselves. They have more concerns in space and different, bigger bang type of incidents that it's my understanding they have energetically neutralized with some help from our galactic brothers and sisters. Thank you very much. Hey, on a side note, while we're doing intel, I got word today that the post I had written about Obama being a Syrian commander got back to him, and he read it and got a good giggle out of it. But he didn't deny anything. But no, I don't really know what he said or didn't say. I just was told it got back to him, which was interesting. I know that Dunster's read the stuff. I know that Ryan has read the stuff. I know that they get briefed from their staff what the sense is on the street is, and we are considered the street. So that's kind of cool. And in terms of timing, going back to timing, the end of June would really be about 9 days from this point moving forward. I don't know that they'll need 9 days, but if they went tomorrow night, Saturday night, we're looking at really 6-7 days to the end of the month. So that feels about right to me. And then the thinking is the private exchanges will be complete in the wink of an eye, which would be about a week. And then starting the 1st or 2nd of, actually the 3rd of July, I think that's the Monday, that would be the first day for the public. So the thinking is you want the privates and the publics to butt up against each other, have the shortest, most impactful amount of time for the privates, try and get as many through as you can, and then just flip it over to the public exchange and keep a few key locations open in each zip code to cover zip codes for the ZIM specifically, and almost exclusively the ZIM, because everything else is a convertible currency that you can actually take into a normal currency exchange and do your business. So that is the thinking. I'm not really worried about the exchange occurring, nor the rates, nor the payouts, or the structured programs you may or may not select, or NDA. I don't really think about any of that stuff anymore. What I think about is preparation, and have I prepared? And when the bell goes off, am I prepared? And so tonight, hopefully we can take some questions and show me. You can squeeze in a call or two, but I'd prefer to take more written questions, because it's easier to get through more material that way. And I think that's more helpful to more people. And then at 11 o'clock, it's my understanding that Tank's going to come on and do a meditation for the 11:11 kind of group meditation, and I may or may not come back on after that. So it really depends on whether or not my child needs me or not. So that being said, that's kind of the intel portion. It's pretty much all spelled out in greater detail in Dinar Chronicles. I think I've done 3 sit reps today, maybe 4. I know there's another one coming tonight. We are on the other side of the RV. They sprung it at the summer solstice. And one other thing that I can talk about. There's some things I can talk about tonight, which is good. I'm not usually the guy not to talk about things, but tonight I'm going to hold a couple things close to the vest and not even release them on sit reps. But one thing that did happen on Wednesday night with the solstice is and when I say Wednesday night, Wednesday morning, they actually flipped the switch globally, meaning the switch for the RV has been flipped. All the countries are up and running, and all the banks have tested out and are up and running. What's significant about that is it's the first time I've ever had real clarification that we had made it to the other side of the RV, meaning everything structurally and compliance-wise, military-wise, diplomatically, geopolitically, obviously the banking and the wealth management post-RV, even the media, I have been informed, is very well in the loop on this and has a commitment to keep everything under wraps in terms of, not spreading the news that people are running into banks getting rich to avoid, a fire in a crowded theater type of scenario. They are well aware. There's people in very high places and medium places in the bank that are now very well aware and panicking a little bit because it's here. Media is the same way. Local police have a sense of things, but not everything. And the military has a real good idea of what's going on because they're doing the protection. So FBI knows, CIA knows, NSA knows, and a lot of the politics that you're seeing here at the end seem crazy, and I'll say that like Christopher Walken, seems crazy, really wild, the things, healthcare, wow, it's bananas what's going on politically with not only Trump, but it looks like they're taking away health care, but really they're giving it back to the states because everyone listening to this call could fund health care in their own state if they chose to do so, and they don't have to use it as a federal mechanism anymore. So, when you see things that appear like they're really bad, maybe look at it in the opposite and think, how is that good as it relates to the RV? That's if you're a believer that the money is a real thing, the flood of money. The other thing that I would look at is when you see Paul Ryan, I think everybody should think Obama because they're working in harmony, I'm told. And when you see Trump, everybody should think Israel. So when he's speaking or tweeting, just understand that he's speaking and tweeting for Israel. And we can get a little bit into that later. But at the end of the day, whether you believe or you don't believe in the RV or Obama's a special galactic here to help us, or Paul Ryan's president or not president, or Trump is good or bad, it doesn't. The only thing that really matters is the truth. And the truth will set us all free. And I think most people on this call believe that the truth is that there has been a reset, there has been a transition of the guard in terms of power structures that is going to play out financially, level out, and we believe that we will not only benefit our families from what we hold and what we will convert, but also we will benefit the world through humanitarian causes and projects and a life committed to service of others. That's just what we believe. And if you're new to this call, you're going to hear some things that are pretty out there, things you're not going to hear on other currency calls. There is a currency element that we speak of here, bonds and sovereign assets and private placement memorandums. And, there's a variety of things we talk about here you're not going to get on a normal call, but we also go into areas of extraterrestrial contact and energy healing and just everything under the sun, from chemtrails to fluorinated water and healing chambers that sustain your life far beyond what the current life spans are. We tend to touch on a lot of things and try and put all the pieces together instead of just the money aspect, because we're of the mindset that it's an overall transition of the human species that's going on and not just a financial transaction, even though there is a very short and brief financial transaction coming up for all of us. So that said, show me, let's go to some questions, or Dr. WC, whoever's got the list.
I can look up the list here.
Show me here.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to rifle through these, Yosef, okay? And then maybe.
Sure.
I didn't review any of them. I'm just reading them as I go here. So how will a $500 million Zim bond be treated? Flat rate, 500 million times rate?
Okay, so you have a face value currency. So let's, instead of looking at it as 500 million, let's look at it as $500 US dollars. And you go into a bank and the Zimbabwe dollar might read, we'll call it $15 on the screen. Well, you have a $500 bill, and for every $1 US, you'll get 15. For every, let me rephrase that. For every $1 US, you will get 0.15 or 15 cents. Is that right? 1.5. You'll get 1.5 Zimbabwe dollars for every. Right, take that back. No, 15 cents. So it's reversed. So the Zim is actually more valuable than the U.S. dollar. It's a bad example because it's reversed. Let me try it again. Your $500 million Zimbabwe note, if you multiply it by the screen rate, right, it will be 500 million times 15. And that would be your screen rate. So I think that would equate to the 500 million would be 5 billion plus another 2.5, so $7.5 billion you would get back in United States notes or United States dollars, depending on what I think it's USN. So you would get $7.5 billion for your one note. Now, a lot of people don't believe that. We here on the Real Truth Call do and know it to be so. So instead of shaking your head that that's way too much money and you only need a penny of that, or you don't need $15, you may not need $15 or per Zim note, but you may not need $7.5 billion either. You might be much happier with $7.5 million, which is okay too. And if that's all you want and that's all you need, then you can ask for that, and they'll reconfigure the rate to make sure you get to the final number of whatever it is that you're looking for. Now, the flip of that is, regardless of what size note you have, if you go in and you see the exchange rate and you'd like a little bit more because you'd like to do some humanitarian projects or create some jobs in the area around the world, you can ask for a higher number than the screen value, as high as you can handle, and they can accommodate that too. Just they'll go into a structured payout program and pay you a percentage of your earnings over the course of 5, 10, 15, 20 years, whatever you and the bank work out, and they'll give you that higher rate. So you have choices to make, whether you want the screen rate, whether you want something lower than the screen rate because the screen rate's too high, or whether you want something higher than the screen rate, create some sort of longer-term program that you and the bank will become in longer relationship than just the hour to hour and a half year exchange. I've been told the exchange now, if you have non-Zim, is 20 minutes. I mean, you're in, you're out. Boom, it's quick. Zim takes a little bit longer because of the ramifications of the volume. So I don't know that I did the best job of answering that, but that's the thinking, whether you have one note or 10 notes or 50 notes or 1,000 notes. You don't need to take all the money if you're uncomfortable taking that much. And the flip side is if you really have a divine covenant to service the world and really get money out to people, and you're going to need it over the course of time, and you're going to build yourself a philanthropic organization or buy one or blend into one that's already in existence, then you can take more. And the reason you can take more is because those that are collateralized in the new financial system with their asset want people on the street, regular folk, to get money out to other regular folk and people on the street. And they feel that the common population, or the population that's never had access to these kinds of money sums, will be better suited to a lifetime of mercy and getting the money distributed than the super wealthy that have hoarded the money and created financial drought and monetary desperation across the globe. And so they give you access to more of their collateral, which allows you to take more liquid cash and hopefully create more mercy and blessings for others. So I hope that's the answer.
That was good. Okay, next question, Yosef. Are we now clear to move forward with the RVGCR after DEFCON threats of Tuesday, Wednesday were defeated?
Yeah, I mean, we were okay then too. They just, I mean, it was. I don't know how serious it got. I don't know if there was a detonation of a nuclear device or the threat of it, or they had missed one, or they knew about it and were just trying to find out where they were going to launch from and then zapped it before it got up into the atmosphere. I'm not sure how they handled all of it. You can't eliminate all threats, at the personal level. If somebody decides to take their car and go ram it into a, crowded restaurant, I mean, that's always to be there. But what they're looking for is a 9/11 type of attack that they intend to thwart off before it gets to the people or scares the people, and thus lowers the energy, collective energy of the species, because this is a very benevolent act that we're getting this flow of money, infinite flow of money. And so they want to try and keep the energy as balanced and as level as possible. And so whenever they see something that's dramatic like that, they just tend to put the brakes on, figure out how and why they did it, and correct it, and then get it reset and make sure the energy is correct and balanced, and then make decisions about moving forward. The positive is they keep moving forward in other areas, so it's not as though they completely stop, but the only thing that this particular group, it seems like, cares about is getting those damn digits and the 800 numbers that you can contact and set up exchange appointments. And so, from that standpoint, we're still not there, obviously, because we're talking about it. But, if it came tonight, at midnight, it wouldn't surprise me at all. It wouldn't. Do I think they'll wait for a weekend when things are a little more calm because the banks and the markets are closed? Yeah, I do, and everybody's out on their boats or enjoying the summer, the Fourth of July weekend or pre-4th of July weekend or whatever it is. That to me makes more sense. But if they want the element of surprise, then they can go at any time. The good news is everything at least from a technical standpoint, from what the banks told me, everything is really ready. So, the food is hot, and anytime they want to let people in to get their grub, it's really just letting the information out. It's not a structural issue. It's not a technical issue. It's not a banking issue. Really, it's just more of a bigger picture and getting every nation in harmony with one another to do this. And they have ways of making the Israels and the Ukraines and the Trumps of the world, bend. They have those ways, and they've already implemented many to most of them. They're just holding on to the last second to negotiate their best possible deal, is my estimation. And they've tried to use every last trick in their bag chaotically, including, dirty bombs and launch bombs and all sorts of stuff like that. And it just doesn't work because it doesn't have the energy behind it or the planning or the sophistication to carry it off. So it's really just a matter of time. It's not a question of if, it's really more when. And now praise God. Now the when is day to day and really hour to hour. Next question.
Okay, Yosef, an EBS announcement of 800 numbers seems like it would invite too many non-currency holders to call in, too, wouldn't it?
Yes. But that's not the reason to have an EBS alert. That wasn't the point of it. You see, whenever you prepare to do something on this magnitude with this kind of impact, you have to have the worst case break the glass scenario. And the emergency broadcast system is that worst case scenario in case there's an issue. And I'm not talking about necessarily with the 800 numbers. I'm talking about with where to go in case of fire or attack or something along those lines. And so that's what the EVS is for. Could they use them for 800 numbers? They could. I've heard that, bantered about. I put it out there that they could. So I didn't want people unprepared, but I know that's not optimal. But the old adage is, the old Chinese art of war adage is, if you want peace, prepare for war. And I think our military and militaries around the world are preparing for a warfare against the cabal. They've been actually engaged in warfare invisibly. Right now, we have special ops in North Korea, taking out their generals and their army and controlling some of their infrastructure, so there's not a collapse of society. I mean, there's a lot of strange stuff going on right now in some very strange places. Venezuela's got another ghost, group of military experts there doing their thing and making sure that it's safe for the population when the fuse is lit and the transition is released. So I don't mean to scare anybody with the EVS, but I wanted people to know about it in case, it might flash across there the RV or the revaluation of currencies has started. Contact your local, foreign exchange branch. I mean, it could be something as simple as that. It could have the actual numbers. But they have to have a way to communicate with the people in case something takes out a satellite and shuts down the internet. So just keep that in mind, that if you want peace, you got to prepare for war. And make no mistake about it, guys, this has been a war. You've been through a war. You've been through a war. And we're going through the rough white rapids of our canoe trip. This is the tough part right here at the end. This is the birthing. We are in the middle of it. And the water is very rough, and it's very fast, and it'll move you left to right and upside down before you know it. So you got to stay balanced, and you got to keep your paddle moving, and you got to keep your head about you, because so much is going to change so fast, it's going to be uncomfortable here at the end. But on the other side of that, it's calm water. And you just got to trust that God will bring you through whatever he's brought you to. And the EVS is just another way to communicate in a worst-case scenario, and so they've been testing it because they're prepared to go, not because there's necessarily going to be a problem, but if there is, they want to make sure they have a way to communicate to the people.
Okay, Yosef, next question then. What is your opinion regarding the theory that Obama tax year expires June 30th, thereby ending tax calculations benefiting his administration and conditions for the release of the CR, and that the U.S. Treasury, along with the Trump, control the trigger point?
The U.S. Treasury, in its form with Steve Mnuchin and Trump, don't control anything. They don't control money flow. They don't control nuclear codes. They don't control the military. It's really just a pageant. We can get into why and how that's a pageant, maybe a different question. But to answer your question, yeah, the Internal Revenue Service has been reformed. It hasn't been eliminated. And a lot of the taxes that we've paid will be paid back to us in time. But it doesn't eliminate taxation, not right off the bat anyway. Just like paper money, the RV doesn't eliminate paper money. It just kind of renders it obsolete, because when you're dealing in these kinds of numbers, you can only do it digitally, and you can't carry cash around in this size, so you have to do it digitally. So same thing for the IRS. It doesn't eliminate taxation. It just it eliminates the taxation of the past and pays it off and can return it back out to the people. People that aren't aware of the RV, that's how they'll benefit. Their mortgages will get paid. Their taxes will get returned. Their student loans will be wiped clean. Their nation's debt will be wiped out, so their credit lines will be better. I mean, there's a lot of ways people benefit from the RV without holding currency. Obviously, there's no more war, Persia Sara, so there's peace on earth, which is always a good thing. New technologies are released for medicine, for zero-point energy. This will change the way we exist as a species. I mean, it's that enormous. It literally will change the way we exist as human beings, as humankind. And that's why they're inching along and not, rushing it, which is maddening to those of us in need of whatever, money or health or, saving your house or saving your car or saving your family from divorce. I mean, the list goes on and on when you're in financial desperation. But there are nations in financial desperation. And everybody's been made to wait until everybody goes. But this is the point where we're on the other side of the bridge and we're on the other side of the solstice, in essence, which was the cutoff line for every nation to get on board or be, whipped into shape with penalty. So there's a lot of really good, positive, wonderful blessings that are thrust upon us, and it's incumbent on us to stay positive and open-hearted, grateful about what's not only coming but what's here, and just to make sure we're going over everything and preparing, and preparing as much as we possibly can to be ready when our number is called or the numbers are given. Next question.
Okay, there's 3 parts here, but I'll start with the first one. When you help someone out, how would you handle this? Here's an example. You want to help an old acquaintance buy a house. Would you contact him yourself and give them your business card? Tell them you work for a philanthropic organization and you help people with their bills, buy cars, homes, whatever is needed, and have them call the phone number? Or would you have a lawyer contact them anonymously? And how would you have a lawyer contact them and present the gift of helping them?
I mean, it's a really good question because it's going to apply to all of us at some point in time and with everybody. So in the past, what I've said is you've got to treat every person as an individual experience. Some people can handle more information than others. Some people just won't feel comfortable taking money from you, especially money in that amount. And other people will try and get over on you, and they'll see an opportunity to get more money out of you and never, let you alone or worse, bug you to the point where you don't want to be friends with them or do anything nice for them anymore. So you got to read the situation correctly, especially family. Giving money to family is a great way to lose family. So if the goal is to improve your relationships, you really have to micromanage each one and think through, can I really, talk to somebody about wealth and money? Can they handle it? Will they change? Is it better to do it anonymously through a third party, an accountant or attorney? Should I hire a staff that goes out and blesses people randomly and just put people that I find that I want to bless on a list and kind of, have an office space where people can come to and their attorneys can contact my attorney? Should I just give them a random number? Should I just send them a check, a cashier's check, and have somebody that I trust deliver it to their doorstep and say, God bless you, and this is for you from God? I mean, I'm going to do it primarily through attorneys, but, my family kind of has a sense of what I'm doing, so I'm letting my wife handle my family because we've decided in my home that they'll take it from my wife, but they won't take it from me. Even though I generated it or God generated it, it's ultimately my wife that they'll trust more, and then we'll decide on each individual case as they need it. But we won't give everybody $1 million or $10 million or $100 million just because we have it. We'll really try and sit with them and say, what is it that you need right now to get you back to even, and then take them up in phases versus just lumping an enormous amount of money on them. The flip of that is there's some people that have businesses that are in need of, $10, $20, $50 million cash infusions that pay their salaries or go to the next phase of investment or tooling up or whatever it is. Some people need their homes paid off that are destitute, seniors. It's great to give people money, but once you give people money, you've got a bullseye on your back that says you have money. And if you talk to anybody that's ever won the lottery, they will tell you the last thing you should do is let people know you're rich, because it's the easiest and fastest ways to lose your friends and your family. Because once you start giving, they'll always expect you to keep giving. And not that you don't want to keep giving, but don't go into it Pollyanna and think that everything's going to be great just because you're rich and you can help everybody. A lot of people have built up issues. A lot of people have a lot of resentment over money. A lot of people will resent you for being wealthy. Why not them? Why didn't you tell me about the RV? Why didn't you tell me about the currency? Why didn't you give me the number to the Real Truth Call, or you gave it to me? Why didn't you stay on me about it? I mean, it can get weird, and it will. So your best bet is to go really slow. Don't give people too much too soon. Build them up with multiple gifts over time and ease them into a consciousness of things have changed, and obviously changed dramatically for you, but that you want to include them in your blessing, and you just want to be responsible about doing so. And if they do good with this amount of money and they do the right thing, then there'll be more if they need it.
That's a great answer.
But whenever you give, the key is whenever you give, never expect anything back. You are always on the out box of this. You never get to get anything for your money. If you're paying off somebody's house, it's because you derive joy from paying off their house. You don't want them to come work for you. You don't need them to teach your kids hockey or soccer. You're not asking anything of them. And to make that very clear that it's really just a non-recourse benevolent gift, and I just want you to have it. There's no repayment. There's no expectation. It's just from love to love. And, if you want to take it, great. And if you want me to hold it, I can until you're ready for it. But here it is, and just, nothing. There's nothing I need in return. Not even your glorified appreciation. Just understand that God has given you this, and try and move on. The more humble you are about it, the more matter of fact, and the more cold you are about it, not getting too wrapped up in their joy, is important, because you give somebody $250,000 and they've been struggling their whole life, and they paid off their house and they can live for 10 years on it. I mean, that would break people down. So if you give them $2.5 million or you give them $25 million, not only would they be appreciative, but they would be very confused. Why? How? I don't understand. Like, what? Not everybody knows about the RV. Very few believe in the RV. Even less hold currency. Even fewer hold ZIM. Even fewer know about the sovereign rates. Even fewer are going to be in that first, 6 days of private redemption. So mathematically, you're talking about a very small number of people that's a very limited and select consciousness. And you've got to work people up into your consciousness and not expect them to be at the level you're at because you've been studying it and living and dying it for 5, 6, 7, 9, 10 years. And it's irresponsible for you to overload people, just as it would be immoral of you not to share your wealth. So you guys have to figure out your own pathways that work for you, and you have to figure out whether you want to be known or unknown, and you have to figure out in what amounts is the greatest good for this person in this moment. And don't try and lump everybody into a $10 million block or a $100 million block. Everybody's going to be a little different. You try and tailor and customize your giving to not only their financial needs, but their emotional and spiritual needs as well.
Here's a part 2 to that, Yosef. This is a gift from God. Are you mentioning this to people? What if you are helping people and you come across someone and find out that they are not a follower of Christ? Will you try to talk to them about Christ? what would you say? And would you stop your gifting someone?
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't stop my gifting if they were not a follower of Christ. If they were going to hurt themselves or hurt others, I would stop the gifting. But as long as they're of a good spirit and of a right mind, they're mentally and emotionally, physically stable enough to handle it. When I give, it once it leaves my pocket or my account, it's gone, and I never want to look back at it. The flip of that is I don't want to talk about it all the time either. I don't need to be patted on the back because all I did was buy something on the internet, and God created the circumstances for me to redeem it and give it to you. So, yeah, I understand you're appreciative, and that's great. But if you really want to, befriend me, or talk about something that we have in common, let's talk about helping other people, and then I can, get closer to you and share more with you. But if it's just a straight gift, I've been on this call for, I don't know how long I've been on the Real Truth call, but I was on some calls before that. And certainly I've been in the currencies, blogging for a couple of years. And I don't know that there's ever been a post I put out that didn't have God somewhere in it or pointing people towards Christ and using it as a ministry opportunity. I doubt that after the RV it'll be any different. I just won't be on phone calls. So yes, I do think you should share Christ with people and the love of Christ every opportunity you get, whether you're giving them money or a hug or you're at a ball game or you're in line getting a hot dog. When's a bad time to share Christ? And I've had people reject me about this, even when I'm giving them currency for nothing, because they didn't like the fact that I invoked Christ's name in the gifting with money. And I understand they were not bad people. They just didn't want to equate money to Christ, and I was communicating this is Christ's money. But they didn't want to hear that, and so they rejected the currency, which basically was rejecting me. And I think just because you have big accounts suddenly, and doesn't mean that everybody's going to love on you, or everybody's going to suddenly listen to everything you have to say. Quite the opposite. I think a lot of people are going to be very angry and resentful about your wealth. Not even knowing how much you have, I think they'll be very envious of the fact that you've been given this gift. And we're all going to have to work through those emotional spirals where all we want to do is bless their homes and bless their families and bless their communities, and they don't want any part of it. They would rather live poor and angry and without the love of Christ in their hearts than take the money from you, because they don't think that much of you. And everybody on this call knows exactly what I'm talking about. And they have people like that. They know it doesn't matter what their intention is in their heart, people are going to have bad intention in their heart for them. And there's nothing you can do about that. We have scars leading up to this moment, and those scars are going to be with us the whole way. We'll have lost friends and family members, and some have died. We'll have lost business partnerships. We'll have lost marriages. We'll have lost a lot of our own health, some of our own sanity. And I don't know that there's any way around that kind of suffering. I just think there's only through it. And I choose Christ as the way through it, because that to me makes the most sense. That feels right to me. So I don't know that sharing Christ is any easier when you have money, but it sure helps when you're feeding hungry people. They sure listen to you, So we'll see.
Okay, next question, Yosef. I totally get. Sorry, just trying to read it here. I totally get it per your intel sit-reps regarding Syrian Commander Obama overseeing the GCR release. This morning on the front page of the Honolulu Star-Advisor, there's a photo of former President Obama playing golf yesterday on with his longtime Oahu, I think it is Oahu, a longtime friend Bobby Tilcombe or whatever. In light of the DEFCON situation in the recent days regarding the RV release, would Obama be in Hawaii playing golf, or are the cabal-controlled Obama clones still out there? Is it MSM
No.
propaganda?
Yeah, okay. Don't go that. Yeah, you don't know. Well, first of all, there are military generals and people in the Pentagon and people in silos. I mean, it's not as though we're unmanned or unarmed or Obama's flying around with a cape stopping, warheads. But the thing you have to understand about Obama is he wasn't always benevolent. In fact, quite the opposite. He was meant for great destruction as he was brought up and built and developed by evil forces. But the light saw this coming, and so they developed a walk-in that would take over his body. That's why I did the post on the tan suit. That's when we understand that the final walk-in happened and got him and really changed things around and has stayed benevolent since. And that was, I think, in August 2014. So Obama can have great reach and impact, just as an ex-president, but if he's truly a spiritual, transcendent, being or commander that's here to usher us into a new era as a species, planet, dimension, solar system, whatever his responsibilities are to God in that sense, he has the ability telepathically to communicate. He has the ability to slip into spirit and still stay in his body. I mean, don't let your eyes deceive you. Beings that have multi-dimensional existences can be a lot of places at a lot of times. And ultimately, we have those powers and capabilities. We just have kind of put them to sleep genetically or cellularly in our own bodies, and one of the things that'll be waking up as we move forward, that our genetic cellular memories of our abilities to travel time and space without taking in our bodies with us. And again, this is Real Truth Call out there stuff for people that are unfamiliar with the call, just looking for financial guidance. But if you look at how Obama is really pulling the strings behind the scenes, or not so much behind him anymore, but in front, if you look at Paul Ryan and his relationship and how they're still meeting when he's in D.C., and I'm sure in communication on a regular basis to work through all the policy, especially Obamacare, it's dramatic how involved he is as an ex-president shortly after his presidency ended. It's very unprecedented in terms of getting back in the game politically, and we believe it's because he's here to help transition us, and we think they trapped Trump with knowing that he was a cabal choice to run against Hillary. We think he was never supposed to win, and they forced him into winning and controlled the election in his favor when he thought he would lose. So he had committed a lot of crimes up to that point in terms of treason, taking money from foreign governments and consulting fees, and he was even spewing positions of foreign governments in his speeches and in his rhetoric. Social media, he was taking positions in Israel and Saudi Arabia and Turkey, and he was doing a lot of preaching for countries and their rights and their hopes and dreams and aspirations geopolitically, and that's why it didn't make a lot of sense to those watching that knew one day he might have to govern, so that when he got in a position where he won by accident, he was extremely surprised and had no real political friends to rely on to build an administration. So he picked the bottom of the barrel. He picked a lot of his colleagues. He picked a lot of people that he knew personally that had no government experience, people that were on the campaign trail, people that had donated big to his campaign, that wanted to be a part of an administration but had never been in government, like Betsy DeVos, Ben Carson. I mean, it's it's just really weird. It's a complete, shell game. There's no substance behind his government anywhere. And I know there's people out there that love them some Trump, and I think I understand why. I think the nationalism and just supporting your president because you believe in the presidency as an institution, I respect that. I get that. I bash Trump, not so much because it's Trump, but because I understand what he's done to the institution of the presidency and how he's bastardized it for money and been used as an operative for foreign governments to try and weaken our country, not strengthen it. And so I bash him to defend the presidency, not to bring him down personally. In the same way that I have told people that Paul Ryan is president in my eyes since the Republic was fired up in 2015 in the fall. Not because I'm necessarily such a pro Paul Ryan guy. There's a lot of things about Paul Ryan I don't particularly care for, but structurally I understood him to be the leader of the United States, the Republic of the United States, and so I shared that. And a lot of people got really upset with me about being pro-Ryan for the same reasons they're mad at me about being anti-Trump. But from my perspective, it's just a structural commentary on how I think things have shaken out and fallen out when we emerged from bankruptcy from international court for the negligence of our sovereign debt that we could not pay going back to December 2012. So I don't take their criticisms personally, but what I do understand is that some people are making decisions about their own political opinions on unlimited information. And so whenever you have a limited amount of information, it's kind of hard to get the position right because you're not playing with a full deck. And it's kind of hard to play a card game right if you don't have all the cards. So I don't know that I have all the cards. I think I might have more cards than most. And so when I lay out my hand, it's because I think I've done a better job of researching maybe than my person on the other side of that opinion. And if somebody's done better research than me, then I'm happy to listen and change my opinion, regardless of how the cards fall, because that's just the truth. And I'd rather know the truth than, have a wonderful opinion that's inaccurate. Next question.
Okay, next question. This might tie right into what you were talking about. Question, how is Donna? Has this been verified by good sources? Who had the children?
Yeah, this is awful, guys. This is, by the way, I didn't come to that lightly. It angered me when I came to it. I really had to look at it. It's such a good impersonation of the man. It's really hard to kind of tell. It takes time to really see all the nuances of what he's doing or what she's doing. But aside from Trump being a man or a woman or whatever you think of that opinion, you have to understand that the whole point of the cabal is to take positions against God. So if somebody's born a man, a boy or a male, that their understanding of their purpose on this planet of creating chaos or an antichrist experience is to switch the gender of their children at birth and then raise them counter to how they were born. So much so they even, sell their children off to other families to raise them differently so they don't have to deal with the shame and indignity of cross-gendering their children. I mean, it's not the first transgender that's been in the White House. Most of the first ladies, in my understanding, have been a transgender. Nobody wants to look at that, but in my research, that's where it's taken me. Those are the cards that have been laid out for me. And so understanding that, looking at Melania Trump, it's pretty easy to see where that could be a man. And she doesn't speak much and certainly carries herself very conservatively because of that. But Donald Trump is very different because of the bravado and the sexuality and the hypersexuality and the beauty contest and the aggressive handshakes and the physical confidence of being a ladies' man. It's all a show to basically deceive you into believing that she is a he. And I mean, I can get into the pear shape of the body and the reduced breasts and the estrogen and the hair, and men of 70 years old can't grow hair like that. They just can't. I mean, very, very few can. The hand size, the foot size, you've never seen him unshaven. You've never seen hair growth on his cheeks. There's no hair on his arms. When he plays golf, he doesn't really reveal his Adam's apple much, if at all. So it's not so easy to see. But I had somebody call me the other day, and I have confirmed it with a source, an intelligence source that confirmed it for me. But I had somebody that was just a regular, currency holder that was a friend, and he said, I saw Trump walk from the White House, the Air Force, to the Marine One helicopter, and he said it's the first time he had ever seen Trump as a woman, even though I had been saying it for a while. He said he walked like a woman. And I said, well, I said, that would make sense, because he's a woman. And she's a man. And the big joke against humanity is, your two leaders, your president and your first lady, are transgender, and you don't even know it.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Was he switching his hips?
What's that?
Was he shaking his boom bum, shaking his rump, switching like a woman switch? Did you see the hip? Did the person see the hip? Boom, with it, boom, with it, boom. Like women walk.
He didn't give the sound effects of good. He saw a woman's walk. Yeah, he saw hips and movement, but he didn't give the sound effects like you. Boom, boom. What was that? Boom. What was it?
Switches left, right, left. You know how a woman's rump. How we shake that bottom.
I am familiar
you
with
it. You should know. You know.
I know all about the rump shakers. I get
okay,
it.
was that what your friend saw?
Yeah, that's what he saw. But
wow. Okay, that was my question.
Yeah, he saw it for an extended period. and it clicked for him. It took a while to click for me. It's a really good fake. I mean, Trump's a really good fake in a lot of ways, but yeah, and that's why I call Donald Donna, is because it's my understanding with the deck of cards that I have in my hand that's what it is. And Michelle Obama is Michael Obama. I mean, a lot of people know she's got some parts that aren't usually found on a lady, And if you look at her arms and you look at her hips and you look at her muscle tone and you look at her hands and you look at her cheekbones and you look at her neckline, I mean, it's pretty screaming obvious that that's a dude. And but you have to understand it in context that's how bad the cabal has been in defining our culture, as they have completely lied to us about even the sex of our leaders, It's that's why I say the blessings and the burdens of the money guys are real, because great, you suddenly get all this money and you can do all this good. Well, that's how messed up things are. You can parade transgender people around as presidents and first ladies and nobody notices. Nobody cares. The apathy of the American population is stunning. It's stunning how much we don't care about what is real and true. Just give us what's on TV, we'll accept it, or some variant of what's on TV and the internet, and let us live our lives. In fact, we'll beat anybody up and chastise anybody and shame them if they leave the lie. So we sit here as pioneers of trying to leave the lie, albeit abundantly with this money, but in essence, the basic premise is we don't accept what's not true, and we don't accept the financial system is true, nor the values of the currency is true, and so we accept the truth as being different, and we are prepared when that truth is revealed, but that applies across all areas and all aspects of the human condition, all culture, all entertainment, all sports, all medicine, all food and drug, all education. Just ouch. So, yeah, you got all this money, wonderful, but the reason they're giving it to you is because everything's so bad. If they don't give it to the average man on the street, how's anything going to change? Because the elite to the upper elite, are the ones that are imprisoning us with these lies. It's not that we're not capable. I mean, clearly we're capable. We're getting it. We're supposed to have it. It's not that we're terrified of changing the world. It's just that, quite frankly, I don't think a lot of us have really studied or researched just how bad things are. And I think as we get into it, you'll start to, the money will help you awaken and see things for what they really are. And you'll see there's a lot of bad people that are happy to take your money and build you the buildings and do whatever. And they're still committed to a God that is of darkness and not of light. We can get into the symbolism of things. We can get into basic elements of survival: water, food, sunlight, just connection, sexuality, pornography. I mean, there's a lot of things, guys, that just nobody's really talking about in a condensed setting outside of Dr. W.C. We'll let you go any direction that's truthful. Just not many places where you can be free like that to discuss things that you're thinking about or on your mind or doesn't feel right. To find out in some sort of fellowship consortium what's true and what's not true. At this point in my life, I would rather know what's true than be comfortable. Now, 10 years ago, maybe not as much. 20 years ago, no, just let me be. Just let me enjoy my little thing. But now I have to know the truth or else I can't sleep. And so I'll stay up and research and, take everything I see online with a grain of salt and just try and piece it together over time. I don't take anything on face value. I research stuff bit by bit, and just if it feels right, great, I keep it. If it doesn't, I throw it away. And if something keeps feeling right, keeps feeling like I'm getting to the heart of it, then ultimately something springs and I get the lesson. I think that's pretty common for all of us. But the difference is your desire and your curiosity to keep going and how much you can swallow of how evil things are. If we get into pedophilia or child sacrifices or, energetic rapes or what they're doing to our water or our air or our genetic cellular structures before birth or, cloning, and it just goes on and on and on and on and on, as deep as the rabbit hole you're willing to go down. And what's interesting is the reason I think I understand the Zim so well, given its volume and scope and all that, is because I understand some other aspects of the lie that they've been telling to that extreme as well. So I can understand how far they've retarded us in terms of our growth and understanding the truth. So therefore, the value that lies on the other side of that, the calm water that I'm talking about, is that so great and so unconditionally loving, so Christ-like, that I'm open to the bigger amounts and the exchange centers being, made available to us at infinite numbers, and structured payouts that go 100 years, and our families, transfer, to the next person, responsible for that kind of trust in perpetuity. I mean, I'm okay with infinite wealth because I understand the depth of the suffering that has been caused against humanity. Infinite wealth is needed to resurrect humanity. So I hope that's what you guys get out of this call is to, pique your curiosity. Don't believe anything that I say. Go and research and look for yourself. Same thing with the money. Don't believe anything I say. Just if it feels right or true, take it. And if it doesn't, let it go. And trust your own judgment now, but at least open your third eye so that you can receive the truth, whatever it may be. Okay, next question, show me.
Okay. You've mentioned that the cabal is no longer a threat, yet at the same time, isn't it the cabal that keeps pump faking continuing to happen? If there is so few cabal left, so okay.
No, it's the good guys that are pump faking.
Okay, but then he's asked, why can't the notable powers that be just jail them, lock them up, and take them out?
It would cause too much of a disruption, so they do it little by little. I guess the way to look at it is this way. I know there's probably a lot of people that have been through a divorce or are children of divorces. But if you just pull the mother or the father out of the house, just like that, it causes a lot of disruption for the kids. They don't know what the heck's going on. Why is mom or dad not there? Are they ever coming back? Mom or dad could be a child molester and a rapist or something awful and been pulled out for good reason. But to the kids, they don't know that. And unfortunately, as a species, especially Americans, we're so asleep to the truth of the cabal's lies that if you just ripped all the cabal congressmen and judges and presidents and candidates and newscasters and sports stars, if you just ripped them all out, the kids would get really upset. And while we might be fully grown and, making a living and having our own families, at least energetically, consciously, we're still children in terms of the growth of the species, intellectually anyway. So that's why they don't jail everybody overnight. Now, do they jail people? Absolutely. They eliminate some people too that won't, go along with the program. They're doing that right now, actually, in North Korea, Venezuela. So it's not as though, it's not happening. It's just do no harm means take care of business, but try and do it as innocuously as possible so that nobody gets upset. And while you may not be upset here on the Real Truth Call, there might be a few thousand people listening to this call, but you're talking about, billions of people potentially that would be upset if, even the Trump situation. Trump was taken out before he ever took office, just so you know. They had the obstruction information on him. They had, well, not so much obstruction, but they had treasonous information on him before he ever got into office. It could have been done in a weekend, and they have. It's a very slow drip because they are building people's consciousness levels up so that they can handle it when they do finally put the final sword into the bowl. It's frustrating for those of us that could have handled the final blow, months ago, years ago, decades ago. But the greater good is to bring everybody along slowly, carefully, cautiously. Keep them always moving forward in their understanding of how the world really works versus how it's been presented. But don't do it too fast where you unnerve or create fear when you're trying to create calm. Just like you don't break the kids, a good divorcing couple doesn't break it to the kids that they're divorcing without a slow process of daddy's going to sleep out of the house for a couple nights, a week, and, blending it in. So that's what's going on, is it's getting blended in, and the RV specifically has been blended in over the course of years, and decades, really, going back to 9/11. So we're there. We're there. I mean, we're almost complete in terms of the release, out to the kids, because the kids can finally handle the truth. But just know the truth of the RV, with it comes some really hard truths as well that are going to be very unnerving to people. And those people that you're giving the money to are going to look to you for answers, not about money or how the system changed or why this is valuable versus, today versus yesterday. But they're going to look to you or what is this about? Or how should we understand this? Or what do you mean 900 extraterrestrial species, live amongst us on the planet? Like, what is cloning? What are chemtrails? Literally, people are just going to come to this for the first time. And you have to handle your business and know what you're talking about, be prepared, so that you don't flinch or get nervous, telling them, or get overexcited or demand they believe what you believe. Like, it's a process you got to take with people, not to scare them. And the benevolence that are here helping us, which we believe Obama is the leader of the benevolence, that's what's happening. They're slowly integrating us into not only the truth of the lie against us here in humanity, but our placement and our relationship to the rest of the universe that we've been held back from our brothers and sisters that don't look like us, but have souls or are loving beings or, have some sort of life relationship to us from the same Creator. And, you're going to be a beacon of hope. Your money's going to give you a lot of credibility in their eyes, but where you're going to be most valuable is sharing the information you're getting on places like the Real Truth Call or doing your own research. That's where you will be of the utmost value to people as they start to ask really good, curious questions. And quite frankly, you might be the only one in their circle that has any answers. And the kicker is, these are the same people that rejected you, thinking you were crazy or out of your mind with the money and, aliens. And all of a sudden, 2 years later, they come back on their knees saying, I was wrong, or they don't grovel or they don't apologize, and they expect you to have answers, and suddenly, they expect you to warm back up to them because, well, I might have kicked you when you were down a couple of years ago, but now that you're back on top, you owe it to me to tell me the truth. Like, okay. And spiritually, you do. Whoever has a higher vibration in any conversation in any room has the responsibility to raise the lower vibration. I'll say that again. If you are of a higher vibration than anyone you are in contact with, you're communicating with, you're in marriage with, you're in business with, you have a responsibility to steward them into the higher vibration. And that is a universal law. Regardless of what they've done to you in the past. And I struggle with that one myself a lot. Because I want people to know they hurt me. And yet God's blessed me with such a high vibration that really I'm their steward until their vibration's higher than mine, and then they become my steward. And that's one of the responsibilities of having this kind of wealth is you become a mentor, a teacher, a rabbi, steward to whomever you come into contact to, any kind of grouping with. Your ministry begins. Your ministry's already begun, right? You've already noticed this. That people are coming to you. They're asking questions. They seek your knowledge. They seek your peace. They seek your presence. They seek your commitment. They seek your certainty. You're already noticing this, and the money will only accentuate that reality. It'll hyper accentuate it quickly. And suddenly the adulation will start coming out of nowhere because you had prepared yourself in your community and your family for the blessing. The trick will be not absorbing the adulation just as you didn't absorb the shame that people were thrusting on you, and to try and figure out a place of neutrality where you can live your life with this kind of wealth.
Yes.
Great burdens with this, guys. Great burdens. I mean, great blessings, but great burdens. It'll be.
Yes, but you've only answered about 4 questions, and you have about 30 more to go.
Well, okay. I'll talk less and answer more.
Okay. Thank you, Doug. Show me. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, Yosef, can you?
I'm not the one making rump shaker noises, but that's okay. Go ahead.
But you understood them, though, didn't you?
I know.
Okay.
I'm human. I'm still human. Last time I checked.
That's right. You're not dead.
I'm not dead yet. Not yet.
That's right.
Yosef, one person's asking about. Sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Dr. WC.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, Yosef, one person was asking how you vet your information and intel. How do
I vet it?
Yeah, like how do you know?
Or how do I get it?
How do you get it? Well, probably get they meant, but they said vet.
Well, get. I've been around the Special Forces universe for a while. That got me into the Republic. Obviously, I was in the banking, sovereign wealth world for a decade before I ever got into currencies. So I had an unusual skill set. In terms of I had an unusual Rolodex that was kind of specifically slated for this stuff. I also was a writer for a decade, even prior to that, and so I have a unique tool to be able to go into spirit and pull some things out of nowhere and connect some dots and get some questions answered. Now, that said, there's a spiritual aspect, but there's a physical, tangible aspect where I get to ask questions and verify a lot of things that I might get from different sources. And I don't always get a direct answer. In fact, rarely do I get a direct answer, but I get hints and clues that lead me to the answer always. And so I don't always have the timing right, but I usually get the structure right given enough time. And so if you look back on my sit reps, a lot of the timing things are wrong, because those are the times they're giving me, right? But a lot of my structure is correct in terms of what happened and why. And I think nobody's really been right with the timing, obviously, but I think structurally I've done a pretty good job of laying things out the way it's kind of rolled out, at least to the best of my ability, when I knew really what was going on. Obama, I was blaming Dunsford and Ryan for not going, and I got a little tap on the shoulder that said, you might want to look at Obama. And I got a couple links, and away we went, and it's like, oh, that makes sense. And then I went back to some old research on the Syrian commander, and I'm like, oh, God, they're right. They're right. It's the only explanation. So, it's not that I wanted to come out and say Obama was a Syrian commander. In fact, I was on this show before saying the complete opposite, that Obama was the Antichrist. And and a plague to humanity and a liberal scourge, and I was wrong. Dead wrong. So again, I'd rather lose my ego and have the correct information than be right all the time and be way off base. And so that's how I vet information. I get to bounce it off of really intelligent analysts or ex-intelligence officers, or CIA, or special forces, and Republic. I have a couple buried in the Republic there that give me a little indication of where they're at. But they don't reveal everything, and they're very tight-lipped about some things. And some things I ask, and they just won't even hint at, whether I'm right or wrong about it. We got some things on the media the other night that the media was, pooping in their pants that the RV was going to roll out in about an hour, and they didn't really know how to handle it or believe that it was finally here. And it got pulled back at the last second. There was a lot of relief in the newsrooms because they have all these things queued up that they have to play, I guess. I mean, it's a real worry for the media because they have a responsibility to keep the peace. So that's how I get my stuff. I'm not always accurate 100% in terms of timing, and I miss some of the intel in terms of what my analysis is and the information that I'm given. And then spiritually, I rely on direction as well. So just because man's telling me so, that doesn't necessarily make it so. So I try and pray on things a lot and be guided that way. And I get a lot of guidance that way, which allows me to new questions. And then from the new questions, I can get some answers on the ground physically through other people. So, but I knew the Zim was real from China back in 2014. When I first asked, what are the elders going to cover in terms of the debt of countries and their currencies, and I got a Z and a V back. And that's how I got started on the whole Zimbabwe. I didn't even know what Z meant. So I'm like, Z? What the hell? I mean, I knew what V was. Like, what the hell is Z? And I'm like, oh. And that took me on a path of a lot of study and research on Zimbabwe and the continent of Africa, and the black race, and the indignities, and Rhodesia, and rare earth elements, and gold supplies, and Shanghai Gold Exchange, and the London Gold Exchange, and bond paper, and printers, and what a bond really is. I mean, it just went on and on and on and on and on. And now the Zim's a joke to me. It's a laugher, because it's so obvious in my spectrum of field of sight, because I know I've done the research. So I'm more focused on the preparation post-RV than getting the currencies right anymore. Anyway, more questions, but that's how I get my information.
Thank you. Ultimately, who would be in charge of making the final decision to go?
Obama. I think Obama's even over the elders. I think the elders had responsibility for the RV, and Obama has responsibility for the overall transition of humanity. That includes the financial transaction. The reason they haven't released the RV yet is not because the banking isn't ready. The reason is because once that money hits the surface of the earth, right, comes out in digital credits to all of us, it's got to go someplace. And they want to have a balanced geopolitical structure so that every continent benefits, every country theoretically benefits, and the leadership is changed out, and the parliaments are all in position, and so that it can manage the opportunity versus basically, giving too much money to an unbalanced, platform. So there's a lot that goes into balancing the world's geopolitical structure when you've got the European Union in flux, you've got Britain in flux, you've got France in flux, you've got obviously Trump, and the Republic is a thing, right, that they're still working through because he's not gone yet. You've got South American issues, you've got Panamanian issues, you've got Singapore issues, you've got Taiwanese issues, you've got North Korean issues. I mean, there's still issues out there that they've got to get settled to get some sort of homeostatic kind of peace where they can drop the money and it'll balance across the whole world. And it doesn't imbalance any one continent, species. It benefits all. And that's why we don't have the RV or the 800 numbers yet. It's because of the other geopolitics that, I've been trying to share with people for the last, I think, year, when I really got a sense that the banking, was not that big of a deal and it completed. I mean, the rates keep going up, which is all great and wonderful, but the actual process hasn't changed much outside of the military getting more hyper involved in controlling, all the Zim centers and all the exchange centers. So I hope that answers the question.
Yep. Okay, and Yosef, this is another one. You've answered this before, but maybe they need to hear it again. 84-year-old young person doesn't feel very comfortable with the signing of trusts and NDAs and doesn't understand all that stuff. Should they bring an attorney? Is it all right for them to bring an attorney with them?
Yeah, it's okay to bring an attorney. Just prep the attorney. My God, poor attorney goes in there trying to protect his client, doesn't realize he's in the middle of a historic human transition of eras, let alone the numbers that are going to be bannered about. And you got to prepare your attorney well before, don't call him and on the drive in explain to him what the hell's going on, because he's going to back out because it might be a violation in his mind of attorney-client privilege. It's a case that he would have a confliction of interest, or he's just uncomfortable because it might threaten his bar license. I've had attorneys back out of me on this. I've had law firms say they wouldn't even deal with me ever again because of that. Literally, law firms, big law firms. So just understand, when you get an attorney involved, attorneys are there for the worst case scenario. I mean, that's why they exist. And and the RV and the Zim is not only a best case scenario, it's a Christ case scenario. So you're asking somebody that's trained in the negative to be infinitely positive. My opinion is you'd be better off taking your pastor than your lawyer or your banker or your accountant, because the pastor will understand the unlimited love of Christ, and he won't get in the way of the details of the banker, or the trust attorneys that are putting your trust together. I think the 84-year-old young has the right idea with the wrong professional. Take somebody that's really spiritually inclined, that has a sense of the infinite, nature and love of Christ. And if you explain this gift or this blessing as the release of Christ's wealth onto the world, they'll have a better time helping you and being another set of eyes and ears. And if they are an attorney or an accountant, great. But ultimately, I would take a more spiritually advanced person than a more professionally advanced person, because the professionally advanced person can actually hurt you in that situation instead of help.
Okay. Joseph?
Yeah.
Okay. Now that Trump, Naughton, and Poroshenko have resigned on their desks, does that mean that their amnesty deals are revoked?
Well, we'll see, won't we? I mean, if Trump resigns and he gets criminally... I actually don't think Trump or Poroshenko the issue. I think we're still at Netanyahu. I think the Chinese and the Israelis, which is really the Hun race and the Dracos. I still think it's a human alien hybrid negotiation going on. I really do. I don't really think it's an Israel thing. Israel's all ready to go. They've got a whole parliament ready. They've got a new leader ready. They've got they've already made the commitment internally. But Netanyahu still has to be removed. And Netanyahu knows this, so he's perfectly fine with holding up the entire world to squeeze out more on the deal. I mean, that's what he is. He doesn't care about the suffering. He's there to inflict the suffering. He doesn't. Why would he care if we're suffering? And I think he holds the Trump card. I think Trump does what Netanyahu wants him to do, and Poroshenko the same way. So I don't really look at Trump and Poroshenko as a relevant player. That whenever, like I said, whenever Trump speaks, I hear Netanyahu speak, and whenever I hear Netanyahu speak, I hear the Dracos speak. I hear an alien genetic speak. I don't really consider him human.
Okay, next question, Yosef.
Yep.
Okay, I have a friend that is a Zimbabwe citizen. He has been trying to bring just a few notes of 100T notes in the last month for his own exchange here in South Africa to exchange at HSBC. Each time at the border, they confiscate it. They are already recognizing its true value. I have gifted him some currency just in case. Will he be able to exchange 100T notes in Zimbabwe as a citizen? Or if not, will he be able to exchange here in South Africa as a Zimbabwe citizen?
It's my understanding they're actually shipping Zimbabwe passported people back to Zimbabwe out of South Africa, which would get them set up for Jasara. Boy, I tell you what, that's a toughie. That's a toughie. That's a toughie. I don't know if you're going to be allowed to redeem outside of your country. So let's give it, for instance. So show me you're in Canada. Do you think you could come to the United States and redeem your Zim?
No.
Well, then why could somebody from Zimbabwe go to South Africa and redeem their Zim? They could.
Probably couldn't. Yeah.
Yeah, probably can't. So the thing to do would be, if you want to bless them that way, just convert it all, and then what you do is you start a trust for him, a separate trust. You just splinter off some for him, and you turn the trust over to him at a later date. That's all.
Yosef, what about through a paymaster, though? I would say yes to that if you asked me that question, if I was utilizing a paymaster.
I still think it's I still think it's, well, I mean, if you've done the group rates are different, right? The group's got people from all over the place. That's different. That's a group rate. It's a private exchange. I'm talking about a public exchange. Even though we're private, I still wouldn't. I just don't. I wouldn't advise it. I wouldn't say go to another country because you don't like your home country. I mean, that's what the quote unquote travel ban is all about. Everybody thinks it's all negative and terrible and bad, and I mean it's bad for a lot of families. And I understand the splintering of families is not a good thing. I'm not trying to say that it is. What I'm trying to say is I think the travel ban is actually in place for benevolent reasons, to put everybody back in their original place of birth in order to get the global payouts from the prosperity packages or the matrix fund. Is part of the Jasara requirement to give everybody an allowance based on where they were born. But to collect that allowance, whether it be annual or monthly, you have to live in where you were born. And so that's why the travel ban's been put into place. Things are just weird. I'll give you another one that's weird. It's probably not the question, but like everybody's, bitching and moaning about the health care package, which on the surface looks like a lot of people are going to lose their benefits and it's going to be bad and negative. But the reality is they're giving the states back their power over the federal government and making it more of how the republic was originally created, where the states are individual organisms that rely on the federal government more for the military protection and some other things, but primarily military. That's why the President of the United States is the head of the military. Well, if you understand that even one Zim note funds all, medical needs for everybody in the country, what are you upset about? That's the way you would want it to go to the states. You could give every state $100 billion out of your Zim notes and fund, all medical procedures everywhere at any amount. So they're setting it up for that. Now the politicians don't talk about Jasara, they don't talk about the RV, and they can't, or they'll lose their amnesty packages. And the media doesn't talk about it. And so what the hell is the general public going to do but believe what they're bitching and moaning about on the screen? I'm watching it going, yeah, it makes sense. Everybody can just give to their local state or their local county, and there'll be pools for at-risk people that have conditions or any new people that come on, and they'll just get insurance, and away we go. And you can pick your provider, and you can choose your doctors, and away you go. I mean, everybody on this phone call can fund, the whole medical, needs of the world with just one Zim note. You know what I mean? Like, what's the problem? Now, that's if you believe in the RV and the Zim and all that. And so I understand the mass of population don't, and so they're trying to get all the structural aspects of how the society is going to run after the RV before the RV. And that's why they're doing that. But it's creating a lot of heartache and turmoil because it's change. And once you give somebody something and you take it back, man, they go bananas, even though they're actually getting more on the other side, but nobody can talk about it. It's weird. Next question.
No, hold up for that question.
No question.
We're going to do our meditation, and then we'll finish after that.
And how long does this meditation go on?
Till 11:11.
And we have Reverend Tank coming in to do this?
He's in. Come on, brother.
All right. Well, Tank, you're up, buddy. I'll see you at 11:15.
Okay, man. Later.
All right. Be blessed. Be blessed.
Hey, Doc. How we doing?
Doing great.
Hey, Tanker.
Hey, show me. A lot of stuff going on tonight, huh? All right. So, guess I'll get started. We got a lot of really good news tonight. I heard a rumor that the CBI website was showing the new rate for the Dinar. But the website's currently down. So let's see what happens. All right. So, you got everybody here, so I want everybody to take a really, really deep breath, and I want everyone to breathe in their freedom and joy and love. No. I want you to hold that, and I want you to breathe out fear and doubt and desperation. And I have a very special request for everybody on the call tonight. I want everyone to understand this moment, what it's about. I want you to realize that we have been in a state of paralysis, waiting for someone else to stand up for us, waiting for someone to rescue us, waiting for someone to give us our freedom. And this exercise is about creating energy. It's about sending a message to the universe with all of us in a universal consciousness for a moment. So I'm asking that every single person right now, no matter where you're at, if you have the physical ability to do so.
I'm here. I'm back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, let's go on to... Okay, next question here, Yosef. With our Zim currency bond exchange, can we help the government of Puerto Rico get out of Chapter 3 bankruptcy situation they are in?
I'm sorry. What? There was a ding in there. I couldn't quite hear. Who's in Chapter 3 bankruptcy?
Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico's already taken care of. They're going to be a state. Alaska's going to become a free agent. And and Russia already have deals with them to buy their oil. Puerto Rico's a non-issue. But you can help the individual people in Puerto Rico. Don't worry about helping the structural foundation of the country. That's already the way you can help the foundational structure of the country is get micro jobs, get women jobs, get kids, part-time jobs, get seniors, working or doing something. I mean, inject money into the economy without, trying to manipulate the government.
Okay. Question number 2, Yosef. In obtaining a CE appointment for the Zim bond notes, can I set up and obtain back-to-back appointments for myself, my son, and relatives who are traveling from Puerto Rico for the exchange, since my relatives speak very little English?
Yeah, I don't know that they'll be able to travel. I don't know that they'll be able to exchange in a country not of their origin, or at least not of their citizenry. Now, supposedly, Puerto Ricans have U.S. citizenry as well without some of the other rights, but if they're citizens of both countries, I would imagine there could be exchanges in the U.S. Whether you can get them back to back to back, I don't know. It's a really good question. Something to call when you make your appointment to ask the person on the other end if you can do that. I'd ask.
Okay, next question. Let me just erase that one.
But it has to do with citizenry, show me. They've got to be able to prove that they're a citizen of the country they're redeeming in. Be it a driver's license or a Visa card or a Social Security card or passport, something.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. What will it take for Trump to resign? His tax returns, the family real identity being generational transgender. Will the media be the one? Will the one delete the first scandal that sets things off?
Really good question. So that was actually answered today, believe it or not, which was amazing. We think that he might have gotten ahead of it. So there was a period of time 45 days ago when Comey was fired, and Comey said that, Trump told him to back off the investigation. And Trump came out and said, well, I hope I don't release the tapes, proving you're wrong. And Comey in his testimony to Congress said, tapes, Lordy, I hope they're tapes, right? Well, today Trump was subpoenaed or had the threat of subpoena of those tapes by the House Intelligence Committee. And if he didn't answer to whether or not there were the existence of the tapes or not. And he came out today and said there are no tapes, he has no tapes, but he doesn't doubt that he's been recorded by the intelligence community and that he's not sure if there are tapes of him, but he didn't record them. So basically he's acknowledging that there are tapes of him talking. Now, what's interesting about that is whether or not they have him and Comey, going through their conversation privately, whether or not they bugged the White House, but more importantly, whether or not they bugged his offices in Trump Tower, not only during his transition, but in his candidacy and even before that, where they probably have him on tape having conversations with Russians about lifting sanctions or taking money, or I'm sure they have him on tape someplace. Now, and he has made mention in the past that why did Obama bug my headquarters, right? So the thinking is, from my little group, is that they have the goods on him verbally, meaning they have him confessing to the crime of not only treason, but proving obstruction of justice because of the treason of him taking bribes from foreign governments and profiting through the emoluments clause. You know, maybe even talking directly to Putin, which somebody raised might be a possibility. But what's super duper interesting about that, if that isn't interesting enough, is that that mirrors exactly what drove Nixon out of the White House was the tapes, and him talking directly about the cover, about the break-in, which made everything he was talking about when he was denying the break-in a complete cover-up, and thus he was obstructing justice by firing the Attorney General, Assistant Attorney General, and Special Prosecutor Archibald Cox, I think is his name. So, in essence, Trump has fired like 3 or 4 different people, and he's denied the existence of a Russian collusion in the election. So to have him on tape talking to a Russian about the election or benefits or money, having him from the horse's mouth talk about it would be basically a windfall, and he would convict himself. Now, it is my understanding that Obama had this information on him before he even entered the White House. So they had the exit strategy for Trump before he ever went in, and they delayed it to this time just on the other side of the summer solstice. I was actually shocked it didn't come out at around 5 or 6 o'clock today. Shocked. And I'm not sure why that is, but I was shocked it hasn't already, kind of made its way into the media. Somebody asked me if that was a good sign or a bad sign. I took it as I'm hoping a good sign, because he knew it was coming and tried to get ahead of it with his tweet today. And it's bad. I mean, it's bad. It's bad. Everybody turned state's evidence on him and his little group, and his administration now got lawyers to negotiate their amnesty deals. I mean, it's bad, guys. It's a lot dirtier too than they're leading on. It's a lot dirtier. Trump was a lot dirtier. It wasn't just Russia. It wasn't just Israel. It wasn't just Saudi Arabia. It was anybody that would throw him money. He would help them in some way during his campaign, because he never expected to win. So why not take all this foreign money and take all this consulting money and take all these, positions where he's expounding positions of the country in his rhetoric of his speeches and putting that vomit out into the world, because nobody ever checks the finances of the losing candidate of a presidential election. They only check the winners. Has anybody checked Hillary Clinton's finances? No. And the interesting thing about running for a political office, if you lose, like Bernie Sanders lost, he didn't lose. I think Bernie Sanders made like $12 million. He got to keep the money in his campaign. He got to keep it. So that's the one little caveat about losers in an election. They get to keep their campaign contributions. So Trump was using Flynn and Kushner just to harvest in all the money these foreign governments were giving him to speak whatever they wanted him to speak on. And he would go, do it on network news or hold a big rally and talk about an issue that somebody wanted talked about. He would take their position, and I don't know how much money he was making per speech or per text or per tweet or whatever. But, the guy was making millions, maybe even made $1 billion or $2 billion, running for office, never expecting to win. And Obama and, the intelligence services had the goods on him before he ever walked into office, which means they had the exit on him before he was ever inaugurated. So
that's like a pretty good scheme for all of them. Look how many would jump out there in the beginning on stage knowing they don't have a chance to win, but that's a way for them to make a quick buck, and then they step down and they get to keep all that money.
Yep. Yeah, and they play the patsy knowing they're going to lose. Anyway,
another way to suck money out of the American people.
Well, and hope and faith and belief, right? Yeah.
Exactly. those that believe that
Mitt
they're
Romney,
the good
Mitt
guys
Romney,
and want to vote for them.
yeah, Mitt Romney ran twice, right? I mean, he made money both
He
times.
ran 3 times.
But he was only the candidate twice, though, right?
Right.
Well, Mitt was no dummy to money, so he saw it as a moneymaker. And that's why he did it, and he played the patsy for Obama, and he played the patsy for, who else did he lose to? Did he lose to Obama twice? No, it was McCain and Romney. Anyway.
Another money-making scheme.
Yeah, it's really bad.
It was.
It was.
Wow.
So I have no love for Trump. But to me, Trump is nothing more than Netanyahu, was a Netanyahu stooge, and a cabal stooge. I mean, whether he's American or Israeli or Saudi Arabia, they were all from the same cloth. They're all family. They all consider themselves family.
What I don't get right now is because of the fact that he has so much riding on this as far as his legacy or his inheritance for his family. And I know there's a part that they all play. But right now, as bad as it looks, why not just, why would he put himself through that, knowing that he could possibly walk away without all of what he's, been promised?
Well, I think he's already resigned, and I think he's already resigned and cut a deal. I don't think he's done that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he's already resigned. Now, I think we're waiting on as you said to me earlier in the day when we talked, it's Netanyahu's resignation that we're waiting on, not Trump.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think Mugabe in Zimbabwe is holding back his resignation and transfer of power until Netanyahu resigns.
Is he 100 yet?
Not yet. I think he's well over 100. Actually, I think he's much older.
Isn't he?
93, but I think he might be much older than that. Actually,
he's got to be in one of the reptilian families because he gets around really good for 96.
He might be 196, sister. My sense he's much older. Just so you guys know, I've met people that are over 300 years old personally, and it's shocking how good they look. But you can see it in their eyes. It's weird. It's like their skin will be, somewhat taut for their age, but their eyes look really old. And
it seems they've witnessed so much.
Yeah.
It's an old soul.
Anyway, that's a really good question. I think it'll be a verbal. It'll be like a phone call. It'll be just like Watergate, and they're syncing the Trump exodus up with the Watergate, precedent. And remember, Nixon was kind of driven out when the tapes came out.
Okay, I apologize. Go ahead, show me your question.
Okay, Yosef, do you have any updates regarding the prosperity packages? And she says the same hi to you.
Oh, thank you. Who does?
Pua.
Oh, Pua. God bless you, Pua. Well, I had Pua, just so you know, Pua helped name my daughter. I gave her a Hawaiian name of Anela, which means direct from God. And it's really fit. I call her Anela all the time, so it's kind of cool. So thank you, Pua, for that. I'm not a prosperity package guy. I was never in it. I understand it to an extent. I understand there are paymasters that are going to disperse that out if they can find the original stakeholders in the prosperity package. A lot of people have, deceased or moved or been jailed or whatever it is, but they're not so easy to locate. Some of these things are 30, 35 years old, so I'm not a prosperity guy. What I would say to you is, regardless of whatever you're to reap reward-wise in terms of the prosperity package, I don't even think it's irrelevant in relationship to the size of the Zim. So I would really focus more on the Zim than the prosperity packages, although I'm sure you'd like some completion to finish what you started there. I have historical bonds in banks all over the world, and while it's great that I'll cash all those things out, it's irrelevant in relationship to my Zim. So I know from what I speak.
I understand what you're saying in that regard, but I disagree because every prosperity tax that I signed up for, I want them held accountable. Regardless of how much is them or anything else I got, they need to be held accountable and pay these people their money, regardless of how much they have. That's my take on that.
Noted.
Because before people ever knew anything about these currencies, and a lot of the elders, seniors, don't even have currency. They are just holding tight to prosperity programs in their 80s and 90s. I think they need to be held accountable, and they need to pay up. That's what I think.
Well, there it is.
Either they pay up or go to jail. Period.
There it is. Period, exclamation.
Yes, because these we got a lot of senior citizens on this call that they don't even have currency. They don't want currency because they believe so much in what these people told them, and they invested money. So I think they need to either be held accountable and pay up, or they need to go to jail. Period.
And see, I would tell the senior to go out and buy a Zim note online and not have to worry about it and hedge your bet.
They've heard this call for years, and we've told them that over and over, but they're trust.
And
you got old school people.
I understand they're old school, but if anybody doesn't get paid out in their prosperity package, find Dr. WC.
That's right. I've told them that too.
There has been Zim hedged for you. Okay.
That's right.
Nobody in the Dr. WC family will go without. Nobody. Nobody.
But still, they still need to be held accountable regardless.
Well, yeah. I mean, energetically, the people that took in that money and made that commitment have to follow through, or else they're gonna suffer from that. So.
Mhm.
It's my hope really more for the people that took the money that they follow through versus the people that might have been scammed because there's other more effective mechanisms for basically achieving humanitarian or project money.
Mhm.
It's actually easier just to go, and get some currency and wait for the 800 numbers and set your appointment,
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion.
I agree with that. However, my opinion is good.
All right. Well, Tapua's question: the paymasters have money. They have to find the people, which is to me what the challenge is.
Okay. Go ahead, show me. Thank you.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about being in an Earth simulator?
In an Earth simulator?
Yeah, somebody said they watched a YouTube video on it.
On an Earth simulator. I've never seen or heard of an Earth simulator.
Okay, next question then. What is the fate Mugabe since he refuses to step down?
Well, he's not refusing to step down. He's waiting to step down. I mean, the Chinese have asked him to step down so they would fund his check. Well, there's deeper meaning in that. Chinese don't renege on their checks. They just don't do that. And they don't do it for, in this case, a diamond mine. It makes no sense to renege on a $10 million check when you've got billions to be made off of mining diamonds. What's a deeper issue here is that Zimbabwe, like every other country, must be Jasara compliant. And, Mugabe is a 93-year-old dying man, and the Chinese want to make sure that the country is publicly set correct. Now, he supposedly has named his successor, and it wasn't the guy they really wanted. So I don't know if that's, part of it. There was a guy named Mangawa that is Chinese trained, even though he fought with Mugabe in the African land wars. He actually was trained in China and has the trust of the Chinese. He's a pretty hardcore cat. Emerson Mangawa, I think is his name. And that's who the Chinese want. So I'm not sure if it's more of a question of who's going to succeed Mugabe or versus Mugabe holding on to power. But there's something there. I'm following it, but Zimbabwe's not going to go very long with that kind of consciousness. They're going to have to surrender Mugabe, or Mugabe's going to have to surrender to get started before the RV, so that his country doesn't miss out. He's basically living his life for this moment. I mean, once this moment happens, and he's rescued his nation and put them on good foundations and got them good partnerships and guarantees of rebirthing their, not just the Zimbabwe nation, but all of Africa, he's probably going to die. I mean, pretty quickly, because he accomplished what he was set out to do.
Okay, next question, Yosef. Can we confirm the USN went gold back globally today?
The USN going gold back globally today. Bruce had said that. I don't pick up on that at all. I think the USN, this is going to sound crazy, but I think the USN went live back in 2013 when they printed the new money. I think we were gold back, going back as far as that printing, at least from my eyes. On the computer screen, it might go from USD to USN, but if you notice, our currency value really hasn't changed much. It's gone up or down a few pennies here or there, but I think the U.S. index is like 96 cents or something to a dollar, net. So we're a little under par, actually. But that's okay because, we didn't lose too much value. They said the U.S. dollar would be cut in half or cut by 20% or 30 cents or whatever they said it was going to be cut by. And really, it's only been reduced by a little bit. And so it'll keep the inflation down here in the United States and keep things costing what normally they would cost. The difference will be when we try and travel, it'll be much harder to travel to countries that have much higher exchange rates. So where it used to be cheap going to the Philippines and Vietnam, it'll suddenly be very expensive. So that'll be the biggest inflationary difference. It really won't affect the price of bread at home.
Okay, next one, Yosef. What is the status of the 800 number packages being sent to Intel providers? Any words?
Well, it depends on the delivery system. I mean, there are 800 numbers out there for early responders, and supposedly they're out there for the gurus, that are going to get a phone call and somebody's going to show up at their door with 2 black vehicles and 4 personnel and they can sign an NDA and deliver the 800 numbers to the people the way that their NDA, prescribes. I had a police car in front of my house for a non-serious reason, but I actually thought it was the delivery of the 800 numbers when I first saw it. So, but it could be just as simple as they put it online and put it to the websites and just let them have it. It could go to the gurus. It could come out on the emergency broadcast system. It could come out in the form of email links to people that bought currency. I mean, it can come out in 1,000 different ways. It might come out in all those ways. But again, if you get too caught up in the 800 number, you kind of lose the point of all of this, and that it's best to use the time to prepare ourselves with the broadest possible amount of information to understand both the investment and the harvest, offset investment versus obsessing over 800 numbers, because that's not a good use of your time. fact, it's a counterproductive use of your time because you're not feeding your mind with anything new and productive. That's why I come on and do these calls, is so that, sometimes teaching something helps you learn it. And I try and do at least one call a week now, just so I stay sharp on the basics.
Okay, next question then. Are reports that the Tier 3 is complete, are they funded but not liquid, or are they liquid and completely released?
It's a great question. It's my understanding they're liquid. They're liquid. But, Tier 3s are private groups and very wealthy families that don't really need the money. I mean, it's not what you think it is. I mean, it's my understanding they're liquid.
Hey, Yosef, can you just talk a little closer? You're really, really quiet. And
I'm sorry. It's my understanding. It's my understanding that they're liquid.
Way better. Yeah.
Oh, it's my understanding that they are liquid.
Thank you so much. Okay. A mega tranche was released Monday, Tuesday night that signaled the start of the Tier 4 with unlimited bank wires. Can we confirm?
Yeah, that's all ready to go. It's waiting on Obama, from my understanding. The whole UN Security Council, it's the elders, it's kind of a group decision, but Obama's a big player in that. The behind the scenes, the diplomatically, the world knows Obama very differently than we know him publicly here in the States. Very different. Great respect, including Putin, by the way. Putin and Obama have been conspiring to do the whole Trump thing the whole time. The whole Russian hacking it, that was all Obama and Putin. A lot of double agent stuff going on here at the end.
So I take it we're not on an autopilot release. We're just
we might
date.
be. We might.
Yeah.
We might be. I mean, we might be for the weekend, but everything flipped on Wednesday at the solstice, which was Wednesday morning, and that started Sunday night. So maybe it's a full week. I don't know. I do think we're on an auto timer. If you're asking me, I do. Is that auto timer 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 7 days? I don't know.
Right. Okay, what is the status of the Redemption Center staff and military, law enforcement, security personnel?
Military staff and military staff at the Redemption Centers is more of they just don't trust the cabal with anything. I mean, with anything, and you can't. So Wells Fargo did the setups of all the exchange centers in North America, or their sister banks in Canada or Mexico, in conjunction with HSBC, who was the end buyer for all the currencies that came in. And Wells Fargo had a very prominent position within the exchange hierarchy. And then the money started flowing in, and they got pinched for trading it and giving it back to the bad guys, the profits of the trade. So that shut down Wells Fargo's executive management, board members. That's all transferred and switched. President got fired, CEO got fired, and they replaced all that. Is Wells Fargo still participating? Yeah, they're still participating. Still staff in there, but now not only is HSBC overriding all decision-making financially, but you now have the U.S. and Chinese militaries overseeing, all of those bankers. So it truly is it truly is at the end a military operation, wholeheartedly. And I was always I was always a proponent the military would play a much bigger role in the exchange centers than some people were suggesting. I thought more as a transition that needed to be protected versus a transaction that needed to be executed, and that ended up being so. But I think there were a lot of games that were played and pump fakes and wires that were used as bait to try and draw the enemy out, and it worked.
Okay. Question, Yosef?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Is there any further information on the diplomatic status for the Zim holders?
Yeah, it's really, people have asked that. It's really more of your account gives you diplomatic status. It's a diplomatic transaction because the actual Zim bond note is a historical bond, so it's no longer in print, so it's an out-of-date, out-of-print asset. So this is what makes it historical, and because it's a historical asset, it's it warrants a sovereign conversion, which requires a sovereign trust within the banking system. It's a whole different screen. So I think people, thought they were somehow going to have to be diplomats and run around with fun suits and go to chicken dinners and shake people's hands from foreign countries. That's not what I was discussing. It's really more about you have a sovereign status within the banking system, which allows you to different investments also within the banking system, which is really good if you're looking to leverage your money. And if you choose to do humanitarian work, having sovereign status really helps in terms of being able to wire and move money around the world and do so with kind of behind the scenes without having to go through retail bank screens. So that's always good when you're moving billions of dollars around to do, humanitarian projects worldwide. It's really good designation to have. And if you decide to go for a diplomatic passport, you might be able to buy one. It might be easier with your sovereign accounts, which is something you can pay a little extra, and you can get some benefits of being a diplomat. If you're doing work on a humanitarian basis, you can get diplomatic status, give you different accesses to airports and security and flights, and if you get arrested in a foreign country and paying tickets, and there's advantages with diplomatic status. Also different passports too. So all things to consider if you're going to be an international player. But really it's more about the banking screen and the account than it is them recognizing who you are. Also, when you're on a sovereign bank account, they have a sense that you might have gone through the exchange, with Zim, versus there's going to be people out there with just a handful of Dinar or Dong, and they're going to put them in normal accounts and not have sovereign accounts because the value of it doesn't warrant not being on screens, that tellers can see or wealth management can see.
Okay, next question, Yosef?
Yep.
Okay, this was a question on rates. I don't know if you want to talk about rates, but there's been talk that the rates, Dinar was at $224, Dong was at $128, Zim was at $63. These are non-disclosure rates, and Rupiah was at around $10.25. Does that sound right to you?
No, the Rupiah at $10.25?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No.
Afghani being around 10.23 makes sense. They might have had that wrong, but no comment on the rates. It's in the ballpark.
Perfect.
I tried to stay away from the rates, especially because I really only like talking about Zim, as most of you guys know, because I think it's the only thing that actually matters, right? So, given that we all, hold Zim here, but what I wanted to say about the rates was that they don't matter because they're so high, whether you got the screen rate is $60 or $15 or $10 or $5 or $1. It's really not gonna. It shouldn't affect your end number. You can get any number you want at the Zim. It goes up over six figures, final holding value. But the deeper question is, what should you take in relationship to your covenant with God? And I've had to come to Jesus about that and say, when I started this pathway, I was looking to accomplish this, and this, and this is the number that gets me there, and that's the number that I've prayed on, and it's, we're well past that number. And, I have a responsibility to fulfill what God wants me to do, not what man will offer me. And so I know what I'm going to take, and I know why, and I'm okay with that. And, but if somebody feels the need to go out and get $100,000 per Zim and get it, and that's what they need, then just understand you're responsible for those blessings of that number, whatever you take, and with the blessings comes the burdens in equal amount. So that's all. I don't look down on somebody for taking less than a screen value, and I don't look down on somebody for going above the screen value. I just want everybody to be in harmony with God when they exchange. That's all I really want. And if you're surrendering to that unity with God, you'll be fine. And if you're not, you'll suffer. And I just don't want people to suffer. So I beg people to surrender and get practice at surrendering so that when the time comes, they're prepared. They've done it before. They know how to slip into a consciousness of surrender. They know how to slip into spirit and receive the information they need and get what they're supposed to get to serve God, not to serve man or serve their ego. Whatever number you get, I don't care. Whatever currency you hold, I don't care. I really care that you are in alignment with your covenant. I really care about that. It really matters to me because I know that I've burdened people with explaining the background and the true value of the Zim. And a lot of people bought Zim because of Yosef. And I feel tremendously guilty about that. Not because my intent was bad, but because I never really thought they would take the number up to what it was really worth. And I was wrong. I underestimated it, and a lot of people bought a lot of currency because of calls like this or posts, and I wasn't wrong about the investment. I was just really wrong about the value of the investment, and I'm trying to sing for my supper and trying to save as many people that I got into it just to make sure that they take the right amount. It keeps me up at night, to be honest with you. So next question.
Okay, based on what you're hearing, do you feel that we will be going before July?
Yes. Should be wrapped up before July. Based on what I'm hearing, July, the number 7 will start the public exchange.
Okay, next question then. Dave Schmidt says that only so much money will be allowed into the U.S., and therefore all this talk, exchange centers, is bogus and hopium. How would the U.S. allow millions of people exchange in the amounts greater than the budget of most countries?
Next
As
question.
he said, yeah. Sorry, shouldn't have
next
read that
question.
one. Yeah, sorry. What can we expect after the golden decade?
The golden century. The platinum century. I mean, good night, guys. This is going to change the whole surface of the earth. It already has. Look at all the countries scattering to get in alignment. Look at Saudi Arabia kicking out their princes to get in youth and vitality to be able to manage this and be in compliance with the Jassara Treaty. It's just awesome. It's heavenly. It's the merger of heaven and earth into one. It's the release of the Christ energy. It's prophecy fulfilled. It's infinite blessings in our lifetime and in our accounting, and and of our responsibility to disperse out to the world. It is absolutely everything you can think of and infinitely more. And there is no way to process it without an understanding or commitment to Christ, and there's no way to manage it without an ongoing relationship with Christ, in my opinion. And surrendering to Christ and the Christ mind in a perpetual state is the only way I feel to enjoy the blessing. How else can we justify abundant, infinite wealth? How else can we look at our accounts on a daily basis and go, oh, that makes sense. I'm worth that. I'm worthy of that. It's only by the grace of God that we would be brought to this table, and it is only by the sacrifice of Christ that we would be allowed to eat the food. It's the only, if you can explain it better than that, please do. If from a spiritual standpoint, I get the zeros, I get the rare earth element values, I get the next generation of products and going through Africa. I get that. I really do, probably better than most. But I just don't understand a better explanation for this than the life and sacrifice and resurrection and ascension and the example of Christ on the earth. I just don't. If you have a better explanation, I'm open to listening. And separate from the religion, separate from whatever sect you believe in, separate from what your parents raised you as, just separate from all of that stuff. At some point, there is the possibility to experience God as God created humanity in this flesh and blood. That possibility to me existed in Christ, and why he was sacrificed, because he was God in the flesh. No religion, no stories or rituals or wafer cookies or anything like that. I mean, just the sheer possibility that God created humanity in his image so perfectly, so pure, so unlimited, that just the presence of the notion of Christ even existing on the earth and blessing it with his frequency is enough for me to believe it so. And that's what being a believer is that the infinite, unconditional love of Christ is available to us all. That's what it means to me to be a believer of Christ, to actually experience the Christ within ourselves. And I think we've been led to this Zim thing or investment or RV or whatever because there's something about all of us that we have in common, that we can reach that Christ place within ourselves at a cellular level. I don't care what religion you grew up in, where you grew up in. I don't care what language you speak. I don't care. It doesn't matter. What matters is the electrification and the activation of Christ within us. And I believe that is happening to all of us. I believe we're all being activated to live our divine covenant in service of the Christ energy. And that we are the hands and feet and the eyes and the ears and the hearts of Christ upon the world. And I've written many posts about servitude and the unwavering request that this money places upon us all, on our souls, to serve as economic mercenaries. I just don't understand it any other way. And as the rate keeps going up and up and up and up, and we've talked about the infinite sovereign levels and elders that live to be hundreds of years old, and Obama being a commanding, benevolent being, governing the human species into the next dimensional plane and era, to me, it all kind of is understandable through Christ, through the prism of Christ, the bridge of Christ. Not Allah, not Adonai, just not even Yahweh, Christ, because at least Christ was God and man. It gave me an example by which I can live my life, which I thought was the blessing of God in Christ, was that he gave us a human being that we could identify with versus just some theoretical God, or multiple gods. Or he gave us flesh and blood to show us what was possible in his eyes for us as a species through this one being. That's why it's a Messiah, right? It's because it gave hope to the world that there is hope for our world and for us. And it's sad that it became a religious thing and a tool they used to control us and scare us, because it was such a beautiful sacrifice that he gave. And so to answer an earlier question, will you bring up Christ in future conversations about the money? I mean, I don't understand them as separate. I don't understand any of this as separate from Christ. Any of it. Even Trump, to some extent, I understand is a necessity in the rollout of this golden era. So, call me a freak, call me a zealot, call me a born again. I don't really care what you call me because I don't feel that way in my heart. I just feel like a guy that feels like I have a connection with Christ, and Christ led me this, and Christ is giving me to this, and Christ is obligating me to this, and I have a role to play for him because he had a role to play first for me. And he did his job, and now it's my turn. No great mystery, no great drama, there's no great intelligence to me or great purpose behind my work. It's just my Christ DNA was activated, and it drew me to this, and here I am, and here you are, and here we all are, just trying to figure things out with this knowingly infinite blessing coming our way. And so we bond in fellowship on phone calls in the middle of the night. We pray at 11:11 to try and, summon more Christ energy up within us and in the earth. And we are humbling ourselves to say, listen, we don't get this completely. Help us understand. We surrender to the truth. But help us. And I think that's a really strong place to be right now, and I think it's the only place to be if you really are understanding of the blessing that's being bestowed upon us. Anyway, I'm off my soapbox. Next question.
Okay, next question. It has been said in the past that banks will insist we have a trust, or they set up a skeleton trust before releasing our funds. Is this still the procedure? I had to ask that one, Yosef, because you had to have a trust question.
Well, just understand the trust system was created to keep the majority of the big money off the books so people didn't see it. Initially, it was created so that they wouldn't be taxed, the rich wouldn't be taxed, but that changed in 1969. And it became a taxable, investment vehicle or holding tank for great wealth. But I want to say like 90% of all money is held in trust. There's a lot of different kinds of trusts, but the concept is basically to keep it off the books of the banks so that they're not responsible for matching it with physical assets in order to have the right percentage of raw assets with liquid, with holdings and currency that they're allowed to take loans off of or loan out. So, if somebody comes into the bank with $1 trillion, the bank's going to have what? I think it's up to 20% now they're going to have to cover in raw assets in their vaults to cover that $1 trillion deposit, which would be like $200 billion in gold or something. I mean, that wasn't a real possibility, and people were generating those kinds of numbers, so they had to create the trust system to hide it. And they've since, used it to tax, but but ultimately it's still really there to be hidden. And a sovereign trust is just another type of trust. It's not anything different. It just has a different designation because how the deposit was initially generated.
Okay, next question, Yosef. Can you talk about the moneyless society? When do you feel that will happen? That will go to a moneyless society?
Yeah, it'll be a process. We're already starting to get into it a little bit. You're seeing with digital currencies, cryptocurrencies. You're going to see debt relief. You're going to see mortgage relief. You're going to see credit card relief. You're going to see these things are all going to start to roll out, and it's my understanding that that's part of the moneyless society. Because once you eliminate everybody's debts and you give them an allowance, chances are they're probably not going to incur many more debts. And if they do, their debts will be wiped off in a non-recourse kind of way. So we're kind of at the really early phases of this. And but when do I feel that we'll see it? Faster than you think, maybe 2030, something like that. 2040, somewhere in there. I think we'll see it in my lifetime, and I'm not 50 yet, so in fact, I'm sure we'll see it in my lifetime. The question is how quickly will this take? So the money hits, and then the bills get paid, pension funds get funded, cities suddenly have no debt, everybody has health insurance, and we're all driving driverless cars with taking flights with no pilots. I mean, people are living to be 10, 20, 30 years older than they were. I mean, how quickly is this going to all ramp up? How quickly are we going to take to releasing all the lies of the generations past in our genetics? To me, that's more interesting than when are we going to have a moneyless society. That's a given. When at a cellular level will we not even need the concept of money anymore? When will we forget it, that there ever was a thing as money? Just forget. I mean, is that something that picks up with time? It's like a momentum thing? Maybe. But I don't know if that's 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, but it's in that range. Certainly my lifetime.
Hey, Yosef, cryptocurrency, so what will happen to the other cryptocurrency companies like Bitcoin?
Well, it depends if they're legal or not. It depends if they're legal or not. I mean, a lot of the cryptocurrencies were created, like a Bitcoin is a cabal generation that they tried to convince you was real before the event. So that's going to go away or be sold to something that is benevolent. So it's kind of hard to say, but the concept basically is no different than a bank. It's where do you want to hold your money? What bank do you put your money in? Well, in essence, you turn over your money to the bank, and then the bank gets credit for it. Well, that's what a cryptocurrency is. You turn over value to the cryptocurrency owners, and they take and invest your cryptocurrency, and you have access to it, but chances are you're not going to use all of it, so they invest it while you're not using it. And it's the same concept. It's just a bank. It's like opening a bank. That's all really cryptocurrency is. There's already digital, when all currency comes from the same collateral source, all currency becomes one currency, which is the foundation of what a cryptocurrency is. That no matter where you are in the world, it'll all have an equal value. Well, we're there, so they were just front running it. They were front running the RV, is what they were doing. and getting in position to be banks. Does anybody really know that Apple is a bank, right? It's a bank.
Yeah, I did.
They loan money to governments at better interest rates than their own treasury bonds. It's a bank. That's the business strategy for Apple. It's not technology anymore. It's being a bank. They make more money. They don't have to be as competitive technologically and have breakthroughs, and it's a bank.
And that's where Apple Pay is coming out so strong.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bank. Things are changing so fast, man. Like, I'm really only interested in the servants. And I think, Zim holders in this particular phase of my life I like to work with, but I really only care about people that want to serve other people. That's all I really want to work with, and I want to develop that industry, if you will, of philanthropists that are paid really well, but developing other philanthropists and keeping it going and expanding it. Because at the end of the day, people are going to make products, and they're going to make homes, and there's going to be road builders, and there's going to be bridge builders, and there's going to be dentists, and I applaud all that. We need all that. I want to work with the philanthropists. I want to work with the hardcore servants and develop them and find them and bless them and give them whatever they need to get to as many people as they can. That's all I really want to work with. So what I'm doing right now, I'll be doing in the future. It just won't be, in this capacity pre-RV. It'll be post-RV in a purely humanitarian sense, working with other humanitarians to improve their organizations and develop new philanthropists that really want to commit their life to service. Because at the end of the day, what's the point when you have all the money in the world? It's only about helping people. Who cares what phone you're using? Who cares what car you're driving? How many people did I help today? That's how we'll all evaluate ourselves if we're doing it right. How many people did I help today? How many countries did I help today? How many causes did I get to? How many businesses did I start? How many families did I reach? How many children did I affect? How many elderly did I save? That's how we'll be evaluated.
You ready for the next one, Yosef?
Brother, I am so ready. I've got.
I love what you just said there, by the way.
I'm in full hockey pads. I'm ready to go. Let's go.
I love what you just said there. That was awesome. That's how you evaluate people on how many people they help in a day. That is the
well,
best
we gotta when we pass and we move back into spirit, we will be evaluated on what we did in form. And I don't want to disappoint.
Yep. This is it's a question, but I think we should be asked for this person. I told my uncle, 70 years old, about the RV, and he told me he had Vietnamese dong. Will he benefit from calling the toll-free number, or should he just go in with the public?
So basically, this person went to a 70-year-old uncle who then showed this person their 70-year-old dong?
Yeah, that he had Vietnamese dong. Yeah.
There was a joke in there, show me.
I know.
You kind of glossed over it.
I know your humor.
Well, 70-year-olds and 27-year-olds are allowed to redeem the Vietnamese dong as long as they have a valid 2 forms of ID and they're citizens of the country they're redeeming it.
But should he do it through an 800, or should he just go in with the general public? That's what I think they're asking.
It depends what he's comfortable with. If he gets the 800 number, yeah, go in for the 800. You can get a bigger number if you want one. But if you're going to wait for the general public, you're going to get what's on the screen and nothing more. I used to tell people, of course you should go, and of course you should take the bigger number, but now I feel that everybody's going to go in when they're supposed to go in. And there's no reason to force it or convince anybody. In some ways, it's almost disrespectful to God, trying to play God, to force people higher than they probably should have been. Is it important that they know the parameters? Yeah, I do believe that everybody should know, but I also believe that you should give them all the parameters, meaning the low end and the high end and everything in between, and let people place themselves according to their internal guides versus your ability to sell them on going one direction or another.
So this is a different question here, Yosef, I'm going to ask you. Now that we're operating from the new financial system, this in brackets SIPs, who are the players equivalent to the IRS, Federal Reserve, Treasury of the old cabal-owned, operated, and controlled financial system? Seeing that the IRS is the accounting and the Treasury and the title holder of the company, for we cannot serve two masters, either we're hot or cold. Can we be lukewarm as to spit out of the abyss's mouth? I'm just reading it word for word.
It's an excellent question. The two-master dilemma is a universal law, so you're always trending towards one master or the other. So that's spot on. But again, if you got kids in a divorce, do you tell them, mommy's never coming home or daddy's never coming back, or do you just ease into it over the course of time? I mean, and what they did with the IRS, the Federal Reserve, and Homeland Security, FEMA, I mean, CIA, they went in and they basically shut everything down and took the computers out, came back in and put new computers in and put new people in and kept the name on the front of the door the same, but everything about it's changed. They did it to the World Bank. They did it to the IMF. They did it to the Asian Development Bank. They did it to the African Development Bank. I mean, they took existing organizations and just reformed them versus eliminating them for the most part. And trying to keep things as normal looking as possible so that the kids would not get upset and notice that the parents were splitting up. And so it's a good question because, we were always waiting for the IRS to be shuttered or the Federal Reserve to be shuttered, and they did the exact opposite. They went and cleaned house quietly in the middle of the night. CIA did it quietly and shut down Langley one day, and then they reopened, under new management, same logo, same everything. And when you think about it, it's pretty smart because it just creates the lowest amount of discomfort to those that are observing. I always say this about the RV, and related to sleepwalkers. They always tell you not to wake up a sleepwalker because it's dangerous because they'll freak out, right? When they realize they're not in their bed and they're outside in their pajamas, they'll freak out, and it's very traumatic. Well, that's the way the elders and Obama decided to take humanity, because instead of waking up the sleepwalkers of Americans that were running around thinking they had a pretty good handle on things, instead of waking them up too quickly with the arrests or the military overthrow coup of their government, they decided to do it very slowly, very gently over time. And yes, we got Trump, but we got Trump for an entire election cycle and then 5 months of the presidency. They didn't just pull the plug on him one night, go into the White House and do an arrest body snatch on the guy, So I think it's a good lesson for us as we move into being able to buy companies and buy philanthropies or start companies or philanthropies, that sometimes the better part of valor or the greatest good is actually reforming the existing structure versus starting anew, because it creates the lowest visibility pattern of change, which creates less disturbance of the qi if you're into feng shui. So you just want to try and do the least amount of harm to the environment that you're in, even though you're really there to create the greatest amount of change. And I think they're really good lessons. I took a lot of lessons away from what they did to the IRS and the Federal Reserve and the CIA and the Republic government and presidencies and how they reformed the Supreme Court. I mean, it's life-altering stuff that they did without really anybody really noticing, except a few crazy people in the middle of the night on the Real Truth Call.
Okay, next question on that from that same person. And how are we able to transfer funds from our treasury managed accounts on the new system to the accounts created under the old system of the banks like Wells Fargo, BOA?
Okay. So it's a good question. We're getting an echo here. I don't know if you can hear it.
Yeah, I got rid of it.
So the reality is it's all the same system. That's what transferring from the old financial system to the new financial system means, and that there is no more old financial system. So all the accounts, whether you knew it or not, changed over. All your money's changed over from fiat to gold back. All your currency changed over. All your loans changed over. All your mortgages changed over. And so when you go to exchange your currency and you want to move it into your existing checking account or savings account or trust, it will already be gold backed. It'll already have been transferred. And so the transfer from your gold back to your existing accounts will be gold to gold. And it'll be a seamless transfer. And this was done to create the least amount of drama when you're making transactions like this.
Okay, next question, Yosef. Can I choose my own percentages for the humanitarian projects? Example, beginning first 2 years, 1%, 2 years later, 10%, 5 years later, 50%, 10 years later, 80%, 20 years later, 99.9%.
I mean, you can do that internally, right, which is a good move. Like, pace yourself. Don't feel you have to spend all the money you're getting in the first year. You're not going to be able to give away the money in the first year that you would be in the second year, in the fifth year, in the 10th year, in the 20th year, just because you'll get staffed up and you'll get a better sense of how to do it over a longer period of time. But I don't know that the bank would really set it up that way unless you really specifically ask, because if anything, they would want to lock you into a structured program long term where you're getting an annuity or annual or semi-annual payment that you know is going to come in for a term or a period of time that's consistent. So let's say you have $1 trillion in exchange and you get a 10-year, a program at 10% annually, you're going to get 10% of $1 billion every year, which is $100 billion. Every year you're going to get that. So every January 1st, you'll get $100 billion to give away, spend, do whatever you want. And then from that, if you want to give away 1% of that, or 5%, or 10%, or 99%, or whatever your goals are, you can do it within the confines of your own accounting versus placing that on the bank. And if you don't use it, it'll just sit there and accumulate until you do. But this gets deeper into the moneyless society, because from that you can deduce that money would generate more money and interest on top of interest, and it would never end. It would be for you. You couldn't spend it fast enough. That's why I already feel we're already in not only a cashless society, but a moneyless society with the RV. Next question.
Okay, we all know Obama has been in charge before and made many stops for the GCRV processing when he was in the Oval Office. Now Obama is in charge again for the final go. How can we trust him or whomever is behind him or whoever makes him in that position again to perform for real humanity for the furthest time, for sure.
How do we know Christ was Christ? You know, there's an element of belief here. You just have to suspend your disbelief. And I can't get you there. I can't hold your hand there. I can show you the way and lead myself, but I can't do it for you. At some point, you have to walk across that bridge and trust. And the only way to do that is to do your research and to be inquisitive and curious about all things that we're talking about here, and dig deeper. And we're not crazy people. We're not irrational people. We're not tin hat people with running around with black Nikes on and, you know, overdosing on cyanide. We're regular folk that kind of see the world differently and understand it differently. And while the money is, obviously we see that very differently, we see a lot of things very differently. And we take our time to research it. I think everybody on this call at this time is committed. And that's why you're here. Or if you're listening to it on replay, you're committed. And I'm committed, and I know everybody on the call at this hour is committed. So you've got to make that leap yourself. I can't do it for you. I can tell you what I've experienced, how I understand things, and you choose whether that is real for you or not. And if it isn't, then move on. And if it is, then, you know, start investigating and dig deeper into what we're talking about. Maybe one day I'll be listening to your call, and you'll be, you know, expounding on a subject that I need deeper clarification on, and you become an expert at it, and I'll be listening to you. I fully expect the baton to pass from the Yosef kind of character that I've become to you guys as operators and philanthropists in the world. I fully expect you to do more than I will ever do in form. I really do. And just as Christ expected that I do more than he. So you guys will have the baton very soon, and it'll be you in the world. It'll be you as the Christ agents of change. It'll be you as the economic mercenaries. And absolutely anything is possible that you can connect and put your heart on, because you'll have the resource and the volume of resource to accomplish it over an elongated period. You become the branches of the tree of Christ, and the people you help are the leaves, you know. And generations, you'll affect generations and generations of families, of communities, of countries. You know, it's staggering the amount of good just the people on this phone call are going to do. Staggering, unfathomable. All because some Wonder Woman with a sword in spirit form started doing these calls way back when and set up the platform. Every night she's been on these calls. Every night. She's probably asleep snoring right now. So when you look at somebody like Dr. WC and you see a life committed that ran into the RV or GCR, it wasn't random that Yosef is on her call. It's because she's earned the right to lead because of her life, and she committed to a life of truth and service before there really even was an RV or a GCR or a currency or a Zim. And that'll be who we are moving forward with whatever cause is deep in your heart. You'll be tasked with leading, being the light that the rest of the world follows. And you have a great teacher in Dr. WC. I only did it for a few years, so, I mean, I've done my part, but when I look at people that have committed their lives to a cause or something beyond or bigger than themselves in service of others, I have such a profound respect for those people, because they're not seen, they're not patted on the back, they're not paid. And, they just do it because it's the right thing. And we get to bless those people and make sure they have what they need to help more people. We get to find them. We get to develop them. We get to recruit them. We get to honor them. We get to send them on trips. We get to take care of their families. We get to make sure they have medical insurance. The people that are in the dirt doing the hard work every day, we are their caretakers. We are their stewards. We are their lifeline to keep going and improve and get a break and a rest. We're their respite, That's who we are. We don't have names or faces. We're just servants of the servants. Because God has blessed us with His infinite pot of gold. And if you think it's going to be anything different than that, you're just not getting what this is. So when Yosef is out there begging you to surrender, I'm trying to teach you that that's the mechanism by which to improve and constantly grow is surrender. It's not control. It's not power. It's not platitudes. It's not how many plaques you can put on your wall or how many celebrities you can meet or how fancy your cars are or your planes are. It's the exact opposite. It's how many people do you serve anonymously in your lifetime? How many souls do you rescue and save and reach? How many communities do you bless? How many cities can you bless? How many community centers? How many children's villages? How many orphanages? How many senior centers? How many animal shelters? How many, environmental causes can you reach without the need for adulation? Because the Zim, the benefits and the harvest of the Zim will humble all that do not share that frequency. I promise you that. I promise you that. I'm not trying to do it as a minister trying to guilt you into believing in Christ. I'm just trying to share some advanced emotional knowledge that I have in spirit that if people don't master the art of surrendering, that the Zim exchange will actually hurt them, not help them. So I apologize if I sound like a broken record, but I'm trying to save some lives and to some extent some lives that I might have negatively negatively affected by promoting the Zim at the higher rate. Just even sharing that's a dangerous concept that I feel guilty for. So I'm trying to rectify that. Anyway, that's my issue. Next question.
Okay, next question. If in Mexico will adjust the currency from $1 to 1 peso? And when the RVs go, or how soon will the value be adjusted in Mexico?
Well, I think the hardest things for the Mexican people to understand is their currency isn't going to go down, it's going to go up. So I think the current rate of the peso is somewhere around $15 to $1 US. Well, it'll stay at $15, but it'll be 15 times more valuable than the $1 US because of all the land, all the rare earth elements, all of the silver in the ground in Mexico, and quite frankly, you guys don't have a lot of debt because you just don't have a ton of infrastructure, and you haven't issued a lot of sovereign debt around the world that has been reclaimed as being negative. So I think that's going to be a real paradigm shift for Mexicans to regain not only their pride in their economic abilities, but to properly evaluate themselves as being 15 times more valuable than Americans in terms of their currency, at least. I mean, same thing for the Filipinos that are, I think it's almost 50 to 1 now, the peso and the Philippine peso, to understand that the Philippine dollar is now 50 times more valuable than the U.S. dollar.
That'll change.
I mean, when you have all your debts eliminated, and you have that much raw asset and resource in the ground, and that's how the new financial system is valuing things based on what your natural above ground and in ground assets are. That's just what you're worth. And the sad part is the United States really ain't worth all that much. Now, do we have great universities and economics and corporations and quality of living? Yeah, we better maybe than any country our size, certainly, but as good as anywhere in the world. But when you just evaluate what the currency is worth, you can only evaluate it on what the actual hard assets are, because that's common sense finance. You have to have a tangible asset backing your paper-issued currency, bonds, anything. And that's where we got so out of whack with the old financial system. They got away from the tangible asset match or some sort of collateral percentage to whatever paper was issued. And that's how everything got so freaking messed up. And they did it intentionally to try and drive the world into debt and through usury to destroy their confidence, to destroy their will, to indebt them, and then steal other nations' assets through the impoverishment and the debilitation of their currency. That's why it was called a currency war. And that has been rectified. And that system is already in place. Those treaties have already been signed. The gold has already been put up. It's been set inside of central banks. The system has already changed. The world has already reversed its spin. And soon the whole world is going to recognize that, not just the handful of yahoos on the Real Truth call in the middle of the night. We're just front runners. We're just, we're race seers for the others. But the entire concept of value is, I don't want to say it's revaluing. It's just going back to a common sense approach to, you got to have hard assets backing your paper. That's all it is. And Mexico has a lot of hard assets. So the Philippines has a lot of hard assets. Vietnam, a lot of hard assets. Indonesia, a lot of hard assets. Even Afghanistan has a considerable amount of raw assets in relationship to their debt and their infrastructure. So their currency's, 10 times more valuable than the U.S. dollar. And don't even get me started with the continent of Africa or the nation of Zimbabwe. It's astounding. It's staggering how valuable these places are.
So Yosef, can I ask you a question on that when you're saying that about the Philippines then? So you've got all these people that are living in a third world country, and all of a sudden now their currencies revalue in that country, and now they become all wealthy with even the money they hold. How will that affect that country? Like, these people aren't used to that type of living.
In country, that's why there's an in-country rate that keeps things status quo, and then there's an international rate.
I see. Okay.
I'll give you a for instance. So if you're a Filipino that's used to traveling to other places for your vacations or business or whatever, which if you live on an island, you got to travel anywhere to go anywhere, right? So a Filipino comes to Los Angeles for a week vacation with their family, and it used to be 50 Filipino dollars to $1 US. It's very expensive for them to come to the United States. Now their Filipino dollar is going to be 50 times more valuable than $1 US. And it's going to be very cheap for them to come, so they're going to be traveling like crazy. But in country, everything will stay pretty much the same. You see why it's so important to set an international rate versus a domestic rate?
So, Yosef, then you feel that even the people being able to come over here from the Philippines, because it's just not that easy for them to jump on a plane and fly over here, not now. Not now, but that'll all change.
It'll all change, but it'll inverse for the Americans that would go over to the Philippines and think, oh, this is great. I mean, this is 50 to 1, 44 to 1, or whatever it is at the time. When I went there, it was, I think, 44 to 1. I mean, it was hilarious, what you could buy. And the exact opposite will occur. It'll be a lot more expensive to go to the Philippines.
Yeah, I get it now. Yeah.
It's a complete reversal of the way we've been taught economics. I can't even bring this up with friends. just too unnerving. And financial professionals, I practically melt their faces off. You know, they don't know how to handle me. I'm not trying to be a jerk about it. I'm just trying to explain how I understand things to be evolving, and they can't stomach it. Maybe it's my unsightly face. I don't know, but you know, I try and communicate it. I try and be simple and use basic examples and metaphors, and they just look at me like I'm fucking nuts, man. And I think I'm the most sane, rational person going. I mean, what's more sane than having collateral to back up your paper? What's more sane than rare earth elements in rocks generating products to make and sell on the open market? Like, what's more valuable in the modern economy than gold or dependable? I mean, like, why am I the bad guy for going back to common sense, you know, as the rest of the world slides back into it, albeit under the cover of darkness, because you know, you don't want things to change, because that would mean everything about how you understood everything would need to change. And it would make your education basically irrelevant. So it's a tremendous burden to manage this kind of money. So let's start there. But it's also a tremendous burden to be touched by God and be blessed and activated, your Christ activation, to know that there's no situation that you will come into, at least through economics, that you cannot solve through a sustained campaign of poverty, of homelessness, of disease, of maintenance, you know, of the area, of schooling, of repairs for community, you know, works. I mean, there's nothing you cannot bless infinitely. The issue won't be your ability to write the check. The issue will be working with the people for them to accept and get in a consciousness of infinite blessing. And that's a challenge. That's why Christ always spoke in parables, right? Because he was trying to communicate the love of God, which is an infinite reality for him, because he had no disconnect between himself and God. He was God in form. And he spoke in parables and examples because it helped people understand what he was there to do and what was possible for them. And I think we'll all be speaking in parables and using common examples. I hope you notice how many examples I use when I speak, because sometimes I understand things at such a level where I don't have words, and sometimes real simple examples, you know, are very helpful in communicating really big ideas. Again, you guys are all going to have your own ministries. You're all going to be little Yosefs running around doing your thing. And I just hope that I'm providing some sort of starting place for you guys to say, you know what, that, you know, this is how we're going to get to people. We're going to communicate really loving, abundant ideas very simply and slowly. I mean, when we start talking about reversing the financial value system, I mean, what if you were dropped into the Dow tomorrow, you know, the Dow Jones Industrial, and you went on the trading floor and you started explaining people the new Chasara value system, and, you know, it'd be very unnerving to people. And you could be dead right, and they would chase you out of there so fast. You would be a threat and a challenge to their way of life, and they would pummel you out of there. And you could be dead spot on. It wouldn't matter. You just too much change too quickly, and it threatens their way of life. So you have to be, I have to be very cognizant of that, and be patient with groups and people and cities and communities that, listen, I have billions of dollars for you to use and spend, but you have to give ideas and create opportunities for people that are a match with that kind of volume, if that's what you're going to take in. So let's start you with $1 million project, and then go to a $5 million project, and we'll develop trust that my money's good and that you guys, are doing really creative, innovative things and creating change. And then maybe we'll go to 10 and then 20 and then we'll do another one at 50 and then 100. And then, you build up a reputation and you don't go for the jugular, right off the bat and throw $250 million, $500 million out there and think you're the greatest thing since sliced bread and everybody should be doing what you're doing and they don't trust you because you haven't been willing to invest the time. I think that's going to be very hard on people with this kind of money. Very hard. What do you mean they don't want my money? I have an infinite amount of money. What do you mean you don't want to take it? Not so easy giving away money, guys. Just warning you. And giving away a lot of money has a lot. The more money you want to give away, the longer the runway. The bigger the plane, the longer the runway. So you want to do jumbo jet-sized gifts, you need a really long runway to get a jumbo jet off the ground. There I go in parables again. You got to watch.
I like that, though. That's neat. Okay, Yosef, I got a question here. Would it be wise to exchange for negotiated rates for V&D if you're planning on doing humanitarian projects in Vietnam? Would it be recommended to then hold the V&D in a multi-currency account?
Multi-currency accounts are really good if you're doing consistent business in the countries that you're trying to help, because then you don't have to constantly switch it out and pay a transactional fee for it. So multi-currency accounts with international companies are very common. Very common. It's just a normal transaction tool to make things easier. In terms of the redemption, just wherever you redeem it, you redeem it. Wherever country you're in, or wherever you're from, or wherever you're supposed to be redeeming that, just get your currency out of the fiat form and get it into a gold digital form, because it's dangerous sitting around your house because you're hemming and hawing about where to go with it, especially if you have Zim. You should definitely get it off the street as fast as possible and protect yourself, protect your family. But in terms of, and then once it's in the system, then you can transfer it with ease now at any amount. So don't worry about moving the money once it's in there. And then you can move it to other currencies and in different places, and they'll basically reassign your digital credit to another currency. Pretty simple. Go ahead. Show me. Did I lose you?
Sorry. I was reading the whole question and I was muted. Sorry about that. Had to be a long one too. Could you please give an overview of what you know regarding revealing of the new and hidden healing technologies, and your view of the time frame involved regarding availability?
Yeah, that's sticky because a lot of people are depending on healing machines to get them out of whatever illnesses they're in quickly. Do they exist? Yeah, they exist. Asia is a lot more advanced than the Western. I mean, the Eastern Hemisphere is a lot more advanced than the Western Hemisphere in terms of that type of technology. It's legal. Stem cells are a big part of it, and they have stem cell regeneration facilities on every corner in Asia, especially Singapore. The great part about you're having money is you can hire a research staff to go find it and to go seek it out. And what I would do is I would leverage myself if I had an illness and wanted to find a healing machine. I'll be in Asia seeking that out. I'll probably be in Singapore and Shenzhen and different places in China, seeking out a place where I can go and my family can go to jump into some different forms of medicine. There's a lot of different ways to get there. It doesn't have to be a vibrational healing chamber or light chamber, but it certainly can be and should be part of your treatment. And they do exist. Canada has some advancements too. Europe, Germany has a lot of advancements. You have to really do your research, and I would pay a research team, a medical research team, to go find what you're looking for. Let them know what you're looking for and just pay them whatever it costs to do their research and travel and find what it is that you need. And I would duplicate myself that way instead of trying to do everything myself if I was pressed for time. Next question.
Okay. It's a Zim question. In regards to Zim, how many Zim holders now in comparison to the other currencies?
95% Dinar holders, 4% Dong holders, 1% everything else.
Wow, that's shocking.
Not really. I mean.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Dinar had the longest ramp-up time, and going back to the first Desert Storm, and after what happened in Kuwait, it was no secret that Dinar was going to revalue, so that people have been buying it since 2004. The Dong came, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years later or something like that. And then the Zim came about 3 years ago. So it's just a matter of time. And then believability, the Zims, you spend money on the Zim, it may never come back, at least back in the day. Right? But you spend money on the Dong and or the Dinar, and you could, in theory, resell it. You might take a loss, but you could resell it.
Here's a really good question too, Yosef. What can you say to people who suddenly want to buy Zim now that they know what it's worth? Many of us have bought the currencies during the time when it was said to be worthless, but now I know people that suddenly want a crash course on the Zim. I'm careful because I don't wish to put them in positions that will harm them in the future.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a toughie too, because people get, you had the burst of excitement, I had the burst of excitement. We all had that burst, but I know people bitch about the delays and the pump fakes and everything, but when you think about it, it gave us time to adjust and to set our sights on what was real and eliminate what was false, and it allowed us to recalibrate. It gave us time to educate ourselves and prepare. Sometimes ad nauseum, but nonetheless we had time in the delays. So these people don't have that time. They don't have the blessing of getting it early and then having to kill time and do research and stay active. They're scrambling to figure out what they have, why they have it, what to do, where to redeem, what's real currency. They're going back to the real basic questions that we covered, years ago. And these poor people, they're then running into, Zim that has an exponential redemption value. That's horrible. It's like it's not only, I've made the example of not training and then trying to run a marathon. To me, if you get the Zim late like this, it's like being asked to run a triathlon. That includes a marathon. It's just so hard. It's so hard to get your heart around it, your brain. It's miserable, actually. It's really uncomfortable, and you think you're getting this great windfall when in reality you're getting a tremendous burden that you're not prepared for spiritually. Now, nobody gets the Zim out of the stake, so you have to honor that. But the way I would explain it is just look at it as a golden ticket, Willy Wonka style, and when you go into the exchange center, you can ask for anything you need to accomplish whatever your heart's desire, and if you want to, get money for humanitarian projects, you can ask for that too. I really wouldn't go into rate. I would just try and keep it real simple, like it's a normal, any other currency. I wouldn't go into the bond notes. I wouldn't go into the raw assets of Zimbabwe. I would just, if they want to be curious about that and go on their own and listen to the Real Truth Call and replay Yosef, for a few hours, knock your socks off. But I would keep it really simple at this point and always play down the value and always, focus them on the humanitarian aspect.
Hey, Yosef?
Yeah.
Another question here. If somebody's in a pinch right now and wants to sell off some of their dinar or dong, would it be a good idea if they hold Zim to do that?
Yeah.
Would it be wise for somebody to do that?
Actually, yeah, that'd be wise. Yeah. I think that'd be wise. I gave away all my dong and dinar and rupiah. I gave it all away.
Okay. Well, guess what, Yosef? No more questions.
We're done?
We are done, yes.
Ha-ha, right.
But I got one to ask you, if I can ask you.
Yeah, sure.
I was watching some Wilcox today, and he was talking about the movie industry that is now some of the movies are being financed by good guys that are actually trying to get our consciousness to understand some of the truths out there. What do you feel on
that? Excuse me. Well, having been in the film and television and entertainment industry, and knowing the vultures that circle around the carcasses of young people and talent, and having seen a few movies that have some uplifting concepts to them, I don't believe that yet.
But you feel we'll be able to change it eventually.
Yeah, we'll be able to change it. I feel that will happen. I don't feel that is happening. And the reason is I think the cabal tricks are they give you 80% of the truth and then drive you off the cliff with the last 20 and don't let you advance. So I watch them. I see some of the shows. I see some of the ideas and content that they're pushing. But I see it, they're angling it for their purposes. And I don't feel that they are organically trying to educate the population about their beauty or their divinity. I feel it's more about their agenda post-transition so that they can still benefit. But do I feel that there are, improvements being made? Yeah, I do. But it still doesn't feel completely organic to me. I mean, think of it like an information booth, and you go there and they give you 80% of, the truth and about where you're going and where you are. But they don't give 100% of it. They just give you enough to get you to the next place. To me, that's what the movie industry is doing right now. They're giving you enough to get to the next place. Now, that consciously, that could be by design, so they don't give us too much too quickly. But I know everybody watches movies and they are TV shows and they get so excited because they think, oh, this is the reveal of this, and that. And granted, there are some ideas that are very new and very advanced and higher consciousness ideas, and there's no doubt that they've been put in there to expand consciousness. but then they have a gunfight. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
And nobody's killing each other in the next wave of things. So to me, it kind of cancels out the good, because it's like the original intent of this is either for profit or to drive another agenda and give you some truth as an excitement, as an exhilaration, but it's not really the meat and potatoes of the project. And having been in the industry and understanding that all creative decisions are made in boardrooms with people that are not creative, and now I know why they were making the decisions they were making, I don't really have a great affinity for the decision makers at the studio level or at the mass entertainment level. And having been in all the studios, I know that firsthand. The flip of that is the tremendous talent and the abilities of people in the industry, and the industry's spreading, right? So Canada has their own film and animation industry, and Europe has their own. Czechoslovakia has a strong showing. I mean, London has, a lot of talent. Obviously, California and New York, but Texas is starting to have a strong film community. It's really possible to do any type of work anywhere in the world. And now that we'll have these money to fund budgets that, fund a $50 million private investment film without any outside finance, I mean, it's impressive, and you can do it. And you can control the content of the script, and you can control who's acting in it. And, you can control everything about the music. You can control everything if you're writing the check. And you can get exactly what your vision is out to the world. But what's interesting to me is if I watched something like that versus something that Sony Pictures is making for me to watch, and in that same 2 hours I will get a completely different vibration off of the piece because of the original intent of the project. I can tell when somebody's doing something for the love of something and when somebody's trying to steer me in a direction. I can just pick it up. I guess because I know movies pretty well, but so when I do watch the occasional movie or the occasional TV show, I see a lot of things that are changing, to answer your question, Chomi, but on the whole, I feel that the rate of change, I think for this group, we can handle a lot more. But for the average person out there in Sleepwalkingville, that might be just what they need to get them activated and getting curious again about their world. That it?
That is it. We have no more questions.
Praise God. Well, this is my last phone call, guys. So thank you so much for staying up and inputting your questions. I like to do questions versus calls because I get to more information, and when people do the replays, they like the variety of topics, and they just get more answers to questions they may have versus some of the dramas that play out on the calls, because people have different emotional needs and situations, and they get talking, and they're not getting hard answers to questions. I miss that actually a little bit, talking to people, but at this stage, I just think you guys got to get as much information as you can to be as prepared as you can. It's like cramming for a test, I guess. But I've had a really good time on Real Truth Call. I'll be a part of Real Truth family long term, and I love Dr. WC in ways that you probably don't even know yet. But I just have a lot of respect for her and this community, and everybody that participates, from Tank to Fisher to Edward and You Show Me, and all the different guests that Dr. WC has on, and the callers that participate very loyally, night by night. So thanks everybody for letting me participate and espouse some ideas that I have, hopefully you've gained something from my life. I know I've gained something by being here with you, and I look forward to being at the ribbon cutting of the Real Truth University, and meeting some people actually, from this community when the time is right. So that being said, Shomi, thank you so much for running the board.
Well, thank you, Yosef, for everything you do for us. We appreciate all the time and effort and the sit-rips and all the type of work you do. And I know you work around the clock because I talk to you around the clock. So we really appreciate you. Thank God for you. So.
Well, I am just singing for my soul, brother, because I feel so burdened by the Zim and what it ended up being and how I ended up in front of that train. I just was not my intent. It was not my intent, and it's kind of where I've ended up. So it must have been what I was supposed to do. I just feel very guilty about it. I say it a lot because, I kind of feel like, 4-hour calls are hard to do, especially when you got a baby and a wife, and you got to get up and be ready to go, at 7 in the morning. But I feel like it's penance for getting ahead of myself a little bit and underestimating God. When I got into the Zim, it was at 0.000018, I think was the rate. And every 100 T-note was $18 million, and every 50 T-note was $9 million. And I thought, oh boy, we can really finance all the projects we want to do with this. And so I preached it, and it turned out to be a very dangerous beast. And I know that I encouraged a lot of people around the world to buy Zim. And I just want to make sure that they hear me say, they don't have to take the highest number, and they don't have to take sovereign rates. They can take whatever is comfortable for them and let that be enough. And I'm going to do the same. I didn't know when I was suggesting it. I really thought the rate, even when it was $1 or $2, I thought, okay, well, $100 trillion, well, silly, at 10% interest, $10 trillion a year. I mean, that's plausible. You could give that away. But at these rates, it's implausible, and it really brings up the cashless and moneyless society and endless mercy. And I just don't want anybody feeling horrible that they did it, after the exchange, and they're burdened with all this money and no real staff or understanding how to get it out, and feel terrible and get sick or something. I just couldn't live with myself that way. So I'm singing for my supper. I'm singing for my soul with these calls. And I was told in prayer today that this would be my last one, which is a good sign, actually. But this is my last one. So thank you for your Real Truth family for having me, and show me.
Well, Yosef, I'd like to say one more thing. I said, even if just you being on here would have affected one person that's going to go out there and make a difference, that's going to change the world all over. And you just didn't affect one. You affected thousands and maybe tens and hundreds of thousands. We don't know yet. But so thank God for you. Really, you really have made a difference. So
thank you.
I know you're very humble, but you really
no.
I get
it. I agree. I can see that. But at this point, I'm more worried about the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people that bought so much Zim because they listened to me and they trusted me. And there's a group in Nova Scotia that bought a lot of Zim. And Nova Scotia's got 500,000 people. And they struggle with their fisheries, and they're very good people, and they're very decent people, and I kind of feel like I've been a scourge on the island. There's like 50 Zim holders now in Nova Scotia. It's just, I mean, can you imagine what one Zim holder is in Nova Scotia? Show me, you've been to Nova Scotia, I'm assuming.
No, I haven't been there. Yeah, I would understand. That's the same as our city, 60,000 people and probably a couple hundred Zim holders. Can you imagine?
Yeah. 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 So it's stuff like that that really upsets me because, yeah, I've affected a lot of societies and places and countries I never thought I'd get to with this message. But I just don't want anybody to be hurt by my advice, you know. And even if it's correct, it's still potentially hurting people. And if somebody enters into a contract because they are fully aware of the ramifications, then that's on their soul. But if they get into it because I didn't do my job and educate people on what the risks were as well as the benefits equally, then I didn't do my job. And that if they get